the Blast from Our Past Network.
Hey everyone, co-host Corey here. I just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Without you, Podcasting After Dark would not be possible. If you would like to help the show grow, please consider signing up at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. You can also support the show by purchasing one of our awesome t-shirt designs on our merch store at podcastingafterdark.com, or by picking up a copy of 7 Winters Alone by David Irons on paperback, hardback, or Kindle. Just search for 7 Winters Alone on Amazon or click on the link in the show notes. A free way to help out is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those reviews are huge for us and really helps get the show in front of new listeners. Again, thank you all so much for the love and support you've given us over these past few years. It really means the world to us.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom.
Tonight's episode, Dead Heat, starring Treat Williams, Joe Piscopo, and Lindsay Frost.
Corey, can I ask you a question?
Of course you can, buddy.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
Why, do you want to come back as a woman's bicycle seat?
I had a feeling you might want to, but I just had to ask that. No, hey everybody, it's me. It's Sweet Sexy Z, and joining me as always is my beautiful bodacious co-host, Sleazy C. What's up, Corey?
I'm doing good. What's up, buddy?
If you didn't know by now, well, you should know by now because you clicked the button on our podcast, but we are going to be breaking down 1988's Dead Heat tonight.
Woohoo!
Dead Heat is a horror action comedy that is chocked full of everything we love here on Pad. And oh boy, we gonna have some fun tonight. It's a Trick or Treat Part 2.
Yeah, there you go. Trick or Treat Part 2. That's right. This is our follow-up, our 2-part Treat Williams retrospective that we currently had queued up, or actually the podcasting gods gave us. And last proper review, we did Deep Rising, and I walked us through that one. And boy, oh boy, am I so excited to walk through Dead Heat with you. Real quick, I'll just tell you, since I'm talking right now, I'll just tell you what my experience with the movie is. I saw it once back in the day with my dad. I remember him renting it. We used to watch cop movies all the time. So, I think he thought it was just a cop movie. And I remember loving it, being very confused because I was so young. I was probably like 10-ish or so, and I didn't, the idea of like genre-bending movies kind of like throw you off because when you're that young, you don't have as many experiences to kind of draw on, so it kind of threw me off with it's like, why am I laughing 1 second and then seeing some pretty horrific, scary stuff in the next second, and it didn't quite traumatize me the way some other movies did. And if you go back and listen to our movies that traumatize us watch list, you'll know what those are for me and Zach. Right. But this one stuck with me for so long. Honestly, to the point where I have not seen it since I was a kid, but it was one of the movies that were in my head when I pitched the Podcasting After Dark idea to Zach. This was one of the movies that we were going to kind of touch on. Don't know why it kind of got pushed around and shuffled and everything, but here we are. I'm watching it again for the second time, the third, because I watched it twice, but I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And oh my God, where has this movie been my whole life? It's a shame that I have not watched it more because it is a hoot and it is a treat throughout. It is not a Piscopo because Piscopo is something that's not funny and has a weird head, but it's a treat. Dead Heat is a treat. Zach, what about you, buddy?
Well, I was going to say Vinegar Syndrome put this illustrious, beautiful Blu-ray out. Definitely worth picking up because it's got a bunch of extras on it and it's a beautiful transfer, yada, yada, yada. Vinegar Syndrome. The Piscopo syndrome causes your head to get really big. You suck your stomach in all the time when you walk around, and you flare out your chest like you just got out of the gym.
And you're
That's
not
the
funny
Piscopo syndrome.
whatsoever.
No, and it causes you to be really dumb. Like really dumb. Make really dumb jokes.
I know, dude. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I saw this movie with my mom.
Of course.
In the theater, of course, when it came out. I was 12 at the time. I think I saw it at La Hacienda Theater in Sunnyvale. I think I saw it for the first time really wanting it to go in one direction. It definitely did not. I was, you're either a villain guy or a hero guy. And if you like the villains, then you like the monsters and you like the guys in the suits that don't show their faces. If you're a hero guy, you like the good looking dude who, is all chiseled and cut and like the hero guy. I was more the hero guy. I idealized the hero in all my movies, and I wanted to be the hero in all my movies that I saw. So this was one where I was like, oh, I don't want my hero to look like that, where he became the monster guy at the end, And so I think the first outing, I was like disappointed in it, but then when it came out for sale on video, I think I bought it, like Good Times Video or some cheap version. I maybe watched it a handful of times since. And of course, it graced the pages of Fangoria magazine at the time, of course, because the special effects are phenomenal. And yeah, it is a wacky, wild movie that, thank the gods, has been resurrected, no pun intended, brought back to life by Vinegar Syndrome. And fortunately, we're breaking it down. We did Deep Rising right before this, and now we're doing Dead Heat, which in a weird way, they kind of fit really well because they're like horror comedies.
Yeah, with like kind of monster feature type of things, creature features, I should say. And while you're talking about Vinegar Syndrome, I know I have a couple in my collection. There's a movie that I think you have, in the queue for us to do, and it's a Vinegar Syndrome movie. And then I won New York Ninja, and so... but this is the first Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray that I've actually watched. And I really like? Instead of doing chapters, they do reels. They let you select from the reels, and those are the proper reel breaks that are in the movie. So those are like where the reels actually were. And I thought that was a really cool thing that it did. But the Blu-ray and 4K disc and everything looks fantastic. I watched the documentary with Mark Goldblatt, the director, and then I watched the documentary with Steve Johnson talking about all the special effects and everything like that. And obviously we'll talk about them and the cast and everything. But if you like this movie, and if you think you might have remembered liking it, I say just go buy the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray. We're not being paid by them at all. It's a fantastic, not yet. Yeah, hopefully one day. But it's a fantastic disc, and a lot of love went into it. And honestly, it looks fantastic. The cut and everything, or the transfer, I should say.
Yeah. I think most of our listeners are hip to Vinegar Syndrome, and if you're not, get on that train because they put out they're a boutique company. They don't do a huge run of their movies, but what they put out is A+ quality stuff for B and under films that would have been forgotten. And like you said with New York Ninja. So look for more Vinegar titles to pop up in the near future. One of their offshoot companies, I think, is called Fun City, and they do some more dramatic titles. And Fun City's another good one. There might be one in there from Fun City as well.
Oh, okay.
You may be surprised very soon. But I will say, this movie is very unique because I don't think there's honestly anything like it.
Yeah.
I don't think there ever has been since. There was an homage to an older classic noir film that we'll get to later on.
Okay, yes. All right, so you want to touch on that later then, because yes, I know what the connection is to that film.
Yeah, and that film was remade in the 80s as well.
Oh, okay.
So interesting. So, and I also want to say too, this film does show a fact. The fact that you can submerge something in water and it will look old and wrinkled. And if you take it out of water, it'll go back to complete normal in a couple hours. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Can you ever consider Piscopo's head to be normal?
It actually, anything you put in water for a long time, it'll get larger. It'll get larger. It's like those inflatable, like those little dinosaur sponges you put in the water in a capsule. Yeah, that's Piscopo's head.
Yeah,
so
it's good old Piscopo's head.
No love lost here on Joe Piscopo. We don't know the guy personally, and we rarely shit on people, but come on, Joe Pissed Off Capo is he can take the air out of a room faster than the decompression chamber that Treat Williams goes in.
Oh, burn. Yeah, dude, before we go into Joe Piscopo.
That was good. I'm really proud of myself.
That was a good one. And I don't think you're at all wrong. So I do want to piggyback on what you're saying about how unique this movie is. Watching it now, I realize it's a live action comic book, and
Yes.
which is awesome. And it's also 88 minutes, which is fantastic.
Oh.
We love that. And we even both feel that you could have even trimmed maybe 5 minutes off of it, or even a car scene with a hand stitching part in it.
I'm going to say 10 minutes.
Yeah, possibly. But you know what? It's still a tight film. It's still a lot of fun. And yeah, dude, there's nothing else like it. And it does do a good job of the hardest thing in the world, which is riding the line between horror and comedy. Only a few movies can actually do that. Obviously, we all know Evil Dead does it very, very well. But for every Evil Dead, there are 50 movies that attempt it and just can't do it at all. But this does. And, I think that's Mark Goldblatt, the director. I think that's a lot of him and everything. And obviously the writing, too. I think Terry Black wrote this. They didn't do much else. But it's a unique film. And it's a lot of fun. And, yeah, nothing else like it exists. And that is to its benefit.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was thinking of Return of the Living Dead, for example, is another horror comedy. But you're right. It's rarely done well. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. But when it is done well, like those movies we just mentioned, it's great. Mm-hmm. When it's not, it just flushes down the toilet and is forgotten. So this one's not. I'm glad we're doing it. I'm glad we're doing it now. Like you said, it's an 80+ minute movie, which, to be honest with you guys, we break down these movies. It takes a long time to break down movies. This one actually took me quite a while to break down this movie because there's a lot of dialogue that I had to write in. Well, but then I was like, nah, this scene is insignificant. We'll get to that. That's before the third act.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's run down some of the cast and crew before we get into the movie itself, the meat of the order.
You want to start with Mark Goldblatt?
Yeah, Mark Goldblatt is the director, known more for his editing.
Yeah, his editing filmography is insane. We're talking he edited Nightbreed, Commando, Rambo, Terminator. Apparently he got in good with James Cameron with Terminator, editing Terminator. James Cameron got him Rambo First Blood Part 2 because James Cameron partially wrote that, kind of helped write that. And then through there he went to Commando and everything. But he edited Starship Troopers, Armageddon, Hollow Man. I mean, this is insanity. But he's only directed Dead Heat and The Punisher and an episode of Erie, Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, The Punisher, I'll be honest with you, it's getting a lot of love fairly recently, and I think it's warranted. I haven't watched it in a bit. I remember kind of liking it back in the day. I want to rewatch it again.
Our buddies over at Talking Back just reviewed it. By the time you're listening to this episode, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, but they reviewed the Dolph Lundgren 80s Punisher movie, and I know what you're saying. It is getting a resurgence of love, because when I was a kid, I hated that movie, but apparently I think it's a lot better than I thought it was. But plug for our pals over at Talking Back. If you want to hear, if you want to just walk through that movie, because it's actually really hard to find, go listen to that. They break it down, they walk through it kind of like we do and everything. So go check them out.
Yeah, I think there's a Region 2 version that is that's available, but
Okay.
I have a feeling it's going to be coming out soon via Vinegar, or somebody's going to put it out.
Yeah.
They're going to put it out. But yeah, Mark Goldblatt, you're right. He's working to this day. He edited the last Death Wish movie that came out with Bruce Willis, Chappie, Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters. Like some grade A films. The guy is all over the documentary scene. You can see him in like In Search of horror film documentary, the In Search of the sci-fi one that's coming out. He's been in the action one. Like, he's all over the place. The guy's been and he's very proud of his genre work as much as his mainstream work.
And he should be, because this is an awesome movie that's getting a lot of love nowadays.
Yeah. The writer Terry Black wrote some episodes of Silk Stockings, which I'm sure our faithful listener Erin Gilmer would appreciate. She loves that show. And Dark Justice, another one she loves.
Yeah.
He's worked on a few things. I would say this script is at times great, and at other times like a dead fart.
Yeah.
Dead fart? Dead fart, yes.
I'll take it.
Yeah. But no disrespect. Call a spade a spade. There's moments where you're like, ooh, yeah, they could have tightened that up. But let's talk a little bit about the special effects. You had mentioned the special effects. One of the main guys is
Steve Johnson. I mean, that's a huge name in special effects. He had just come off of his work on Night of the Demons, but he's going to go on to also do, Species, Men in Black, like all kinds of stuff like that.
my favorite Blade movie, Blade 2.
Mine too. Yep, I saw that. That's my favorite one as well. Actually, one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. That movie's fantastic. And they're also joined by Todd Masters, who I believe used to work with Boss Studios and Edland, Ghostbusters and all that kind of stuff. I believe they were also a spinoff of ILM and everything. But Todd Masters notably did all the butcher effects scene makeup and stuff, and like that giant cow carcass. It's might be one of the best scenes in the entire movie. It's fantastic, and I think. Yep. I believe, according to Steve Johnson, Todd Masters did that entire scene, essentially.
Wow. These guys. So we go from Deep Rising, which had, pretty shitty CGI.
Yeah.
To this that has phenomenal makeup effects.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, everything looks great because you have Robert Yeoman doing the cinematography, and he's like the cinematographer for like Wes Anderson and Paul Feig now. Like, he's done like the Grand Budapest Hotel, Moonrise Kingdom. I mean, dude, he's done like he did the Ghostbusters Answer the Call and everything. He is a like high-end cinematographer, and I think this movie is elevated because of him behind the camera. Yeah.
It's got those guys behind the camera. I was going to point out the composer Ernest Troost I feel like the score is fantastic in this, especially the opening score. He scored Tremors, so
nice.
There's some cool connections there.
The pedigree behind the camera on this movie is insane.
Behind the camera and in front of the camera.
Yeah, some true legends.
Yeah, obviously Treat Williams. We already talked about Treat. We don't need to go down that road again. But Joe Piscopo, as funny, as annoying as he can be for whatever reason. Like, look, I grew up, my brother had a subscription to Muscle and Fitness magazine because he was a big weightlifter. And Joe Piscopo was on every cover of that with his giant head and his like oiled up body. Hey, the guy eats right. He's in great shape. Amen to him. He was funny on Saturday Night Live. He was funny in Johnny Dangerously. He's had his moments. He's funny in Sidekicks with Chuck Norris, but he's I don't really dig him as a hero in this.
And again, you've said it before, we don't really shit on anybody here, but I'm not a big fan of Joe Piscopo. I mean, he may be a great guy in person. I don't know. His guns, his arms are amazing. I'll give him that.
Oh,
But
he knows they are because he shows them off every 5 seconds.
yeah, and he worked hard for them, so I'll give him that. I got no problem with him showing his guns off because I'm all for pretty people being in front of the camera. Although I don't call Joe Piscopo pretty, his head is very weird. But man, he has no fucking charisma in this movie whatsoever. And I say I'm gonna spout out a bunch of horrible shit that I hate about him in this movie, but at the same time, I don't want anybody else in this movie because I think him being so terrible elevates Treat Williams, elevates everybody else in this movie. But I don't know if you just watched this and then told me he was an SNL like cast member, I'd be like, fuck you. I'd slap you. Then I'd say, fuck you. There's no way. Because there's not an ounce of him that is funny in this movie. But yeah, so that's what I feel about Joe Piscopo. I am not a fan, but I do not want somebody else in this role. It might be perfect for him because it's so fucking terrible.
I think he's actually a pretty decent dramatic actor because the scenes when he has to be like emotional or sad, he's really good at that.
That was my note later when he has to cry, and I'll bring it up now, but that was in my notes. I was like, I think Joe Piscopo's in the wrong movie because he's actually good at like emoting. He's just bad at comedy. Yet he comes from SNL. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's interesting. Dice Man, who's so good in Fort Fairlane.
And my favorite part of Casual Sex.
And yeah, but then you put him in like Brain Smasher, and he's terrible in that. And maybe it's just the writing. Maybe it's the writing. You
have no idea how much I hate Brain Smasher.
Oh, I know.
And its horrible soundtrack with the ladies singing like, oh, Brain Smasher. It's horrible. I hate that movie with a passion.
Well, I'd say you can. I'm not going to.
You're like, you can throw one movie away in your pile then.
Oh, whop, whop. I guess we're not doing that one. Yeah, so really quick, Treat Williams plays Roger Mortis, rigor mortis.
Yeah, it's a cool name, not gonna lie.
Cool name, yeah. Joe Pissed Off Capo plays Doug Bigelow. Lindsay Frost plays Randy James. I will refer to her as RJ sometimes in this. Lindsay Frost, she's been in everything. She's that like kind of stereotypical blonde actress. We've seen them. I'm sorry to say, we've seen a ton of them.
And didn't she have a pretty regular role on Frasier too?
She did. I think most recently she was in The Ring.
Oh, okay.
The American version.
Yeah.
Which I think is really good.
Yeah,
but she's been working in this business for a really long time. She's good. Just like we talked about in the episode of Deep Rising, Treat Williams falling into that dark hair, light eye actor. She's like the blonde actor that we've seen a million times.
Yeah.
Darlene Flugel, Heather Locklear, like they all get thrown into the same category.
Yeah.
Nothing super stands out about her except the fact that she's a complete liar through this whole movie.
She is. She's a fucking liar.
She's a fucking liar through the whole movie. Darren McGavin.
Oh man, fucking
our boy. Kolchak, but also a Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Come on.
Dude, I always love how he says bumpuses in Christmas Story, but yeah, dude, fucking Kolchak the Night Stalker. Fucking love Darren McGavin.
Yeah, he plays Dr. Ernest McNabb. You know who he is.
Of course, and he also has a great toupee on in it too.
He sure does, which he takes off.
Which is awesome. That's a really cool fucking moment too. I like that.
It is. Vincent Price, and we all know who Vincent Price is, plays Arthur P. Loudermilk. Obviously, this wasn't his last movie, but it was pretty much winding down his career at this point. He's Vincent Price. He's no Donald Pleasance in Halloween, I can tell you that much. And if you want to know what I mean by that, go check out our Patreon exclusive series where we do a breakdown, not a breakdown, but a filmography of John Carpenter. It's called The Carpenter Factor. It's our Auteur de Force series, and we are joined with writer and buddy David Irons on that episode when we talk about Halloween and we talk about Donald Pleasance and who was supposed to play Loomis originally, who Carpenter had envisioned, and our thoughts on that. So go check out that Patreon exclusive episode. Some of you are patrons, and thank you for being them. If you are not, please consider doing so. It's totally worth it.
Thank
you.
Anyways. So, and then a fun little interesting side note. So Steve Johnson, when he found out that they cast, Vincent Price, he basically sent the manager, he basically said, I need to cast a sculpt of him, like a life sculpt. And his manager was like, okay, sure. When do you need him? And so he actually got to cast a life sculpt from Vincent Price at this age, the age he was then. And if you go anywhere, it's actually been reproduced, this sculpt. If you go anywhere and see like a life sculpt of Vincent Price older, it's the one that Steve Johnson actually cast. It's been recast, remolded multiple times. But because he did that, they also had a life cast of Vincent Price when he was like in his 40s or something. So you can actually see like we have this awesome example of how how a person ages now, because of it. But that's kind of cool. That's really a neat little thing that he was able to sort of do, and he did it under sort of like false pretenses and everything. But Vincent Price was apparently like, okay, sure, I'll do it. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. And also, just want to throw out there real quick, they only had Vincent Price for 3 days, which it seems obvious, but they had to bring him back for some reshoots, and he did them for free because even though they didn't have the budget to pay him or anything, he did it for free because he's a professional. He was a professional and was like, if you needed me, you'll have me. You know what I mean? So
wow, that's nowadays that's very rare.
Yes, it is.
Claire Kirkconnell plays Becky Smithers, and she was in 29 episodes of The Paper Chase, the television version of the movie that had come out back in the day. I never watched the TV series, never watched the movie, but I know it was popular for law people.
Okay. And she was in an episode of Amazing Stories, which is a show that you and I loved back in the day.
Yeah, we loved that show. Mm-hmm. Key Luke plays Mr. Thule. Key Luke was when, genre fans will know him from Gremlins, but he was also, he was in Kung Fu. That was one of his biggest things, Kung Fu. Yeah. Small, little cameo, Robert Picardo plays Lieutenant Herzog. Robert Picardo we love in so many Joe Dante movies. Yeah. Me specifically, Inner Space as the cowboy, but the guy is a legend.
Me specifically is Eddie Quisp in The Howling. Joe Dante's The Howling, which we love.
Of course, yeah. Mel Stewart plays Captain Mayberry. He's a genre actor. He's been in everything from Bride of Reanimator to Scarecrow and Mrs. King.
Yeah, it's a show that I loved back in the day very much.
Yeah, that was his big show. I think that was the show he really he did, I forget how many episodes he was on that show for, but he was on 89 episodes of that show. So, he was a regular.
Damn. And I have a couple ones that might interest you, but we can discuss them as they pop up in the movie, but I think you'll enjoy them.
Yeah, I was going to point out one more, but maybe I'll save him. Should I save him? I'll save him.
Is it a famous writer, director that has a face role in it?
No, it's somebody who was a former professional wrestler and then went on to Professor Toru Tanaka.
Oh.
He plays the Butcher.
Yes. The Butcher. I knew I recognized him. Was he a wrestler first?
He was a wrestler first, and then he was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Yeah. He was Francis's butler. He was in The Running Man. He was
Sub-Zero in The Running Man. That's where I know him from. Okay. Yeah.
And then I of course I know him from The Perfect Weapon with Jeff Speakman.
Nice.
So and he's like the kind of one of the main villains in that. So he's great in The Perfect Weapon. Okay. But he's small role in this, but nevertheless
very memorable.
Stands out. Yes, very memorable for a 80+ minute movie.
Yes.
So I tell you what, my ear is about to fall off because I'm slowly decomposing. So let's get into Dead Heat.
There's definitely something very weird going on here.
Detective Roger Mortis has a problem. He's dead. But Detective Bigelow is bringing him back alive.
That's okay. Don't get up. Told you not to get up.
Now, he's got 12 hours to solve the toughest murder case of his career. His own.
That's it. From now on, I'm a vegetarian.
How do you fight this thing? Maybe we could drown it in A1 sauce.
Treat Williams
Sit down.
and Joe Piscopo are dead heat. You can't keep a good cop dead.
I know you love that New World Pictures logo, baby.
Bruh. Oh my god, the music of the New World Pictures opening, it's so good. It brought back so many feels for me. The minute it popped up, I was like, no, I could just listen to this all day long.
Yeah.
Add that to my workout mix. Yeah, so that pops up. Then there is a simple title card with the words Dead Heat in a cool font, and it zooms into the camera.
Yeah, bold choice. I approve. I like that title card.
Interesting. Makes me wonder, okay, here we go. We're on the ride. You're going for it. It's going to be a 90-minute roller coaster ride, basically.
Yeah.
There's one point where it gets really slow, but that's about it. Okay. Shots of downtown LA. It's Beverly Hills. Then you see two dudes in a car getting ready to rob a bank. It's pretty obvious. They're putting on leather hooded masks, looking like dominatrix.
Yeah, and my note here was, if you didn't know that this was a comic book movie, and I don't mean it's an adaptation of a comic book, it's just a live action comic book, right away, their masks right here, yes, they're kind of like that leathery domination thing, but it has a supervillain look to it, and I have to think that was on purpose.
Oh, yeah, totally. They look like comic book characters, and they're about to get as colorful as a comic book could.
Yeah, pretty much.
While they're driving, you're cut to a jewelry store where a woman is looking at jewelry. And then you cut back to them, and they're looking at each other, and the passenger's looking at the driver going, come on, come on. I'm like, come on, what, dude?
He's driving. He is driving.
Right? Cut back to the woman shopping in the jewelry store. She's looking at a necklace, and she goes, yeah, but I was hoping for something a little bit more suspenseful. And suddenly, you cut to these robbers pulling up in front of the shop, and they barge in yelling, all right, nobody move. Almost like in a wrestling announcer voice.
That was. And they're, of course, one of them's packing that classic 80s Uzi, the long one, not the snubbed one.
Yeah, there's a lot of Uzi play in this one.
Hell yeah, love me some 80s Uzis.
They're yelling at everybody in the jewelry store. They walk up to the old lady who was asking about something more suspenseful, and the one of the robbers says, "Purse on the counter, lady. You want to be dead? Here's the chance of a lifetime." And then she says, "Please don't hurt me." And then he throws her to the ground, and he's on the floor, Grandma. And then he checks her purse, and there's nothing in there. It's just hair ties and little baggies. And he goes, you cheap old bitch.
Remember, this is rated R, by the way. Let's not forget that. As funny as things are, it is still rated R.
Yeah, this is definitely a hard R.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. If there was nudity, it would have been X-rated.
Yep.
Probably at the time. His partner yells at him. He's like, "Come on, stop dicking around." Oh, he calls him Smitty, but we don't know. We only know that guy's name. We don't know the other.
I don't think we know the other one. Yeah.
One of the robbers is trying to break the glass of the jewelry counters, but with the butt of his gun, the end of his gun, but he can't. And the other guy just shoots it to shit. Suddenly, there's a woman that walks out from behind, like a curtain or whatever, from behind in the back of the store, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And the one robber says, "Oh, just looking." And then he shoots at her, and people are all freaking out. And then
It's like, why does she say that? She can tell what he's doing.
Yeah, duh. Yeah, there's a lot of duh moments in this. And then his partner calls him an asshole, and then he says, shut your mouth and fill the bag. And then they start filling up their jewelry, and at the same time, one of the clerks pushes an alarm button under the counter. Cut to a classic red convertible Chevy.
Oh, yeah.
And Roger Mortis, Treat Williams, and Doug Bigelow, Joe Piscopo, are driving down the road. Roger's driving, and Doug is playing air drums on the dashboard, looking at Roger for, affirmation.
Approval, something? I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Like, look how cool I am, man.
Look
banging the bongos.
Look how cool I'm trying to be, man, but not actually cool.
Exactly. Roger's wearing a suit, and Doug is looking very stylish in his, like, kind of dressed down leather jacket.
With the biggest shoulder pads you've ever seen.
Yes, to compensate for the lack of shoulders on Doug.
Yep.
It was not shoulder day. It was just arm day all day for Joe Piscopo.
You're right, dude. You're right.
Unfortunately. Roger is like looking at Doug kind of annoyed. And he's like, why didn't you tell me we were going plain clothes? And Doug's like, you didn't ask. What's the matter? And Roger says, I look like an FBI agent on a Rose Bowl float. Okay. And by the way, Doug is eating like a hot dog at the time.
Yeah.
This
something.
is important.
Yeah.
Because it's actually kind of funny. Dispatch calls in to them like repeatedly. She's like, 5 Adam 38. Hello. Doug finally picks up the receiver, the walkie-talkie or whatever. And he's like, what? And the dispatcher says, robbery in progress. Proceed immediately. And Doug says, you didn't say may I, which is such a stupid line.
The beginning of a million stupid lines from Joe Piscopo in this movie that apparently, I think he ad-libbed, a lot of it. And, yeah, there was one that I liked, and I think I wrote, it was so weird that I actually liked it that I wrote it down. So whenever I call that out, that'll be the only one-liner that I actually enjoy Joe Piscopo giving in this movie.
Oh, I'm very curious to see what that is.
It's probably nothing great. I didn't hate it. How about that?
I can tell you it's probably not the last line of the movie, that's for sure.
No, it's definitely not.
So after he says that, Roger pulls a U-turn. They're like driving down Sunset Boulevard or something.
He pulls a wild U-turn. The stunt driving in this movie is very fucking good.
All the stunts, all the action, A+, for sure. Yeah, he pulls a Yui, and Doug's like, kick ass, Dirty Harry. And Roger's like, I hate to lose him this time, implying that they've been tracking these guys for a while, or this group.
And did you notice that Doug's like hot dog like bun shoots off when he hangs the Yui or something?
Yeah, as soon as he hangs the Yui, the wiener falls out of the bun.
That's actually funny. That
was funny.
That was good. That's good right there.
Because Doug looks at his bun and he's like, where'd my hot dog go?
Yeah.
The action's pretty good.
It's the best thing that Joe Piscopo does in the entire movie, and it's right in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty much accurate too. And then after, Roger's like, I hate to lose him. And Doug's like, well, you can't get him if you're dead, man.
Ah, real foreshadowing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's when he looks at the bun and sad face because he lost his wiener. And if Pissed Off Capo ever did steroids, he probably lost his wiener a whole long time ago.
Probably did. Yeah.
But I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying if he did. They pull up to the scene, Doug and Raj.
Well, do you notice that, like, when they come flying in there, some of the cop extras, like, start running to kind of go behind the car, but one of them almost miscalculates. You can kind of tell that he went a little too early. And I was like, oh, shit, it's kind of a close call.
Yeah, there's at this crime scene, there are cops running everywhere. I tracked, there's 30 cops there, and they're all running in different directions.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, they're all going to die.
They're all going to die. You just need a high body. This is a high body count for sure.
It actually really does.
Yeah, it's great. They pull up to the scene, and Lieutenant Herzog, Picardo, is there, letting him know about the situation with a really great bad mustache, by the way.
And also, like, you think you're going to see Robert Picardo more, and I almost feel like maybe his character got cut, because it's like, why have such a big name right there? Although I guess he's not really that big of a name, but I was like, oh, I recognize, I know him, and then this is kind of the only scene that he's really in.
I feel like, and if they didn't say this in the documentary you watched, I feel like they cut a lot of stuff out of this movie, because there's a lot of scenes where I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Why would they do that?
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit cut. I know of a couple scenes, one of which had a zombie Linnea Quigley jumping out of a cake, and I don't think it was a dream sequence or something, and everyone were zombies and everything. But that got cut too.
Oh, bummer. I would have liked to have seen that. Linnea Quigley jumping out of a cake naked? No, she would never do such a thing. Meanwhile, she does it in every single movie.
Every single one.
Even if we don't want to see it.
We love you, Linnea, though.
We do, but I don't want to see it. Erica Leniak, on the other hand.
There you go. I love me some Under Siege, baby.
And Chasers. Okay, so anyways, yeah, so Roger asks Herzog if these are the cash and dash boys. Herzog's like, I wouldn't know. Like, you're a fucking cop, dude.
You fucking asshole.
And then Doug's like, well, who else would pull a clown ass stunt like this? Anyways, at that point, cops are moving in. The robbers are getting ready to leave. The Cash and Dash boys exit the store, and as soon as they do, a cop yells freeze, and they shoot him in the head.
In the fucking head, like right in the middle of his fucking brain, and right away, you know what kind of movie you're in for, because it's kind of graphic for a movie that had been cutting jokes up until now. And as a kid, I see why this movie freaked me out, because the bank robbers, the Cash and Dash boys, they seem kind of harmless inside. You know, they don't gun anybody down in there and everything. But here, right away, this cop gets fucking blasted in the brain, and it's actually really fucking good. And I'm like, oh my God. And then cops just start getting fucking decimated.
And the Cash and Dash boys do not, because, well, we'll find out later why, but they're getting gunned down while they're gunning down the cops. The only difference is they're not going down, and all the cops are.
And I mean, and there's squibs everywhere. Squibs on the Cash and Dash boys, squibs on the cops. Cops are diving over the cars, and then like the female cop behind them's getting gunned down. It's actually an intense scene that's really well done. Like, as far as action goes, very, very well done, very exciting, and it actually is going to keep getting better and end very explosively.
Yeah, it ramps. It goes from 0 to 90 in like no time.
No time flat. And
Roger is like kind of wondering why they're not going down, and Doug's like, maybe they're just flesh wounds. Stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at least Roger Treat Williams gives him that look of like, that was a stupid thing to say. So at least he knew it was a stupid thing to say.
Yeah, no, they play really well off of each other. It's just like he's such a cliche character, Doug is.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole thing.
And I do want to piggyback to what you're saying. As much as I dislike Joe Piscopo in this, I do think Joe Piscopo and Treat Williams have good chemistry together. And word on the street is they bonded pretty quickly on this movie. So I do think that comes through.
Yeah, something tells me that Treat is he's a treat to work with.
He's probably just a nice ass fucking dude to hang out with.
Again, maybe that's why he didn't get bigger, because maybe he's not an asshole.
Yeah.
You kind of got to be an asshole in this business to get ahead.
Yeah.
Anyways, so he decides to take things into his own hands. He asks Herzog if he can borrow his car. Herzog yells out, "Absolutely not," which is funny because all these cars are parked all right in front of the store, and a lot of cop cars are getting shot to shit. But miraculously, the Chevy convertible classic is not. Herzog's car is not, for the moment. Roger gets in Herzog's car, drives off, and he does one drive-by with his shotgun out. It's a really cool scene because he like pumps his shotgun and blasts one of the guys.
Yeah, did you notice he like pumps it on the door, like on the door frame, sort of like out the window, like he's resting the slide, and he kind of does it like that, like with one hand. I was like, that's really cool, and he only doesn't really do much on the first pass, which is also cool because usually, you know, the hero always does their big thing like this, and it's always perfect the first time, but it's almost like he didn't miss, but at the same time, it didn't quite go the way he wanted because he has to spin the car around, you know?
Yeah, which he does do very soon after. But prior to him doing that, Doug runs up to the scene and is shooting at one of the bank robbers. One of the bank robbers, I think it's Smitty.
Yeah, it's Smitty.
And he pulls out a grenade to throw at Doug, but Doug blasts his hand, forcing him to drop the grenade.
And what does Smitty say?
Smitty looks down and goes, "Uh-oh." Literally just like that. Uh-oh.
I love how he delivers uh-oh. It is fantastic. But yeah, you're right. He goes, uh-oh. And then kind of like has to hold it because then the explosion's going to happen.
It's like Chunk, or it's like Sloth from Goonies.
It is.
And he explodes. Guts everywhere.
It's actually a really good like fake body explosion.
Oh, every explosion's great in this. And there's a lot of them.
Every fake body is great in this too.
Yeah, it's so good. So Roger flips a U-turn and circles back around. And this time, as he's circling back around, there's one robber left. He drives directly into the robber, smashing him between Herzog's car and another cop car, killing him dead.
Again, absolutely fantastic stunt, great effect. Absolutely loved it, and I loved this entire shootout. I was hooked the moment that cop got blasted right between the eyes. I was like, this is it. I'm on board for this movie, and you know what? Never fucking lets me down at all.
It's a great opening. It hooks you right away. Roger gets out of the car, goes over to the body. Doug looks at the body, and he starts reading his rights to him. "You're under arrest. You have the right to remain disgusting." And Roger says, "Is this necessary?" And Doug's like, "Can't be too careful." Herzog walks up angry, saying, "That's the craziest, stupid, most dumb fuck stunt I ever saw." Meanwhile, 20 cops just got killed.
Yeah.
So reality side of this, who gives a fuck if your car is smashed? You killed these dudes that were gunning down every single cop in Los Angeles. So you're welcome, Herzog.
This reminds me of, I used to read the Terminator comics that Dark Horse put out back in the 90s. And it was like the third series, because, you know, with the Terminator comics and the aliens and everything, they don't like have ongoing series. They just have like little mini series. And like the third one or something was really cool because it started with a Terminator, you know, coming back in Los Angeles, but like in the middle of like East LA or something. But the whole thing starts with he's fighting this one Terminator's fighting the entire like city of Los Angeles cops. And it's almost like an entire issue of this one Terminator just gunning cops down left and right. And it's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not condoning gunning cops down, but you know, it's interesting.
No.
And this, I almost feel like I wouldn't be surprised if this opening scene inspired that like issue, that story arc in the Dark Horse comics, because it almost was like this, how just they couldn't stop it because it's a fucking Terminator, but it just destroyed every cop out there, and it was pretty wild.
It reminds me a little bit of that movie, The Hidden, and I'm surprised we'll probably cover that movie at some point too.
Yeah.
Similar deal, just people just getting blasted to shit.
Yeah.
And like senseless. These are the movies that, you know, the parent council was like, we don't want to show these to young people because they'll go off on a killing spree. Meanwhile, I saw this when I was 12, so there you go. And so did you, pretty much. So
yeah, and neither of us went on a killing spree, but then, you know, those come later with different movies. So I think they were wrong about Dead Heat.
They were so totally wrong. So yeah, Herzog's freaking out. You know, after he says his line, Roger goes, "Please don't thank me, Lieutenant. I get my thanks from helping others," which is actually really funny.
And that's Roger saying that. That's Treat Williams. That's not Joe Piscopo. The funny thing is, any comedy that's funny comes from fucking Treat Williams and not Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, it's true. They're both like kind of wise asses in their own way. And Herzog's, you know, "You better believe the captain's going to hear about this." And Doug Doug goes, "Gee, you think you'll want a word with us?" Cut to Captain Mayberry's extreme close-up to his face, fuming, going off on both Doug and Roger.
Which is a great editing technique about how they're talking about it, and then you basically cut right to them getting chewed out.
Totally getting chewed out. He's running down all the things that they've done to violate being cops. Not to mention 18 parking tickets in 2 months.
There is a funny ongoing gag about the parking tickets.
Yeah, that is actually pretty funny.
Yeah, I
wish
like
they
that.
would have followed through with that a little bit more throughout this thing.
Agreed.
Even to the point at the end where like Roger gives Doug a parking ticket. He's like, "You left this behind," or whatever. They should have followed through on.
Or had somebody towing the car and he had to like get the car off the tow truck or something, or
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm with you. There was a joke there that kind of, it does sort of unceremoniously end, but it's a fun little through line of how many parking tickets they get. I will say this. Throughout the entire film, I could not figure out whose actual car it is. Is it Treat Williams or Joe Piscopo?
I think it's Treats because I think there's a moment where Doug is, when they leave each other, and Doug is walking in the vicinity of a Dodge Daytona. And
Okay.
I think that's Doug's car.
Okay, gotcha.
That's
yeah.
my feeling. But Doug says to the captain, he's like, "Captain, this man," pointing at Roger, he's like, "This man deserves a medal. And I think I deserve one for saving his life." And then the captain admits that they did the job Herzog couldn't. So he cuts him a little slack. He says, "But it would be nice if you could earn it by catching the rest of the cash and dash fuckers and slamming into the wall with a 12-inch railroad spike." And then Roger's like, "We're working on it, Captain. We'll work harder." And they leave. This is a funny scene coming up.
You're not referring to the part where he walks past the nun, are you?
Yeah, this is stupid. It's stupid. It like could have been so much funnier. So Doug and Roger walking out of the captain's office to their office throughout the police station. Doug says, "Fine man, Captain Mayberry. Make a real good gym teacher," which is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, how about drill sergeant?
Yeah. And then he walks past a nun, I guess giving like a report on something, and he's like whispers at her, "Call me Thursday." And it's like, I'm like, it's just not even funny. Like, you're not even
Call me Thursday to a nun?
Yeah, what the fuck?
You know what would have been funny is if he looked at the nun and he goes, "See you next Tuesday."
Yeah.
That would have been hilarious.
Yeah, there you go.
But instead he's like, "I love this job. I love the perks." And he starts running down all the things that he gets with him. Like, I don't care what you're saying right now. You really don't.
Because he's so ridiculous looking. Joe Piscopo is a ridiculous looking human being, but he has amazing arms. His arms are amazing.
So they go into the office, their office, and he takes his jacket off to flex with his tiny gray t-shirt with the sleeves are like capped so high.
Yeah.
And the neck is so big on this t-shirt. It's so weird. It's like a mock turtleneck. And it's tucked in. I got this thing about tucking in your t-shirt. It's a t-shirt, for crying out loud.
And his pits are always sweating and wet.
Always sweaty because he's probably, roided out, allegedly. And he's like, give me the rundown, Roger. And Roger says, "So far we've got 6 robberies, 3 banks, 2 jewelry stores, and a goldsmith shop." Goldsmith shop?
Yeah.
Okay. All the past 3 weeks, all in the same 9-block radius. That's when Doug takes his jacket off and flexes his muscles and sucks his stomach in while he's eating.
Yeah, and plays darts or something. Yeah, it's just
playing darts on a map. And Roger's watching a news recap from the robbery shootout. Apparently Martha Quinn from MTV is the voice of the news anchor.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was my era of MTV back in the day, the Martha Quinn era.
Yeah. And she says that, she's saying this is the most violent string of robberies in city history. She says 2 of the cash and dash men were killed. Doug's playing darts, and he asks Roger how many are in the gang. I'm like, how long have you guys been on this case? And why are you having to ask Roger all these questions? If you guys are like detectives on this specific case, then you should be the ones to know this. And then I go back to the captain saying Herzog blew it. If this is Herzog's case, and they showed up in the scene and they say, "Is this the Cash and Dash guys?" He's like, "How should I know?
Yeah.
What kind of cop is he?"
Yeah.
Like, I love this movie. I'm
Yeah.
I'm not saying I don't, but the writing is pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. And I didn't really notice it at the time, but yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, why wouldn't he know that? And then why here? And yes, of course, it's dialogue that is trying to inform the viewer, but you can do dialogue like that without making your main character sound stupid, because you'd be like, why don't you know this? You should know this. But they're trying to be like, okay, we need to give the audience some dialogue here, and yeah, or some information here. But I'm with you. It's weird because there's other times where the writing is tight, and I'm like, oh, this is cool, and like that adds up. But then here I'm like, yeah, that doesn't add up, and you're bringing it to my attention, which is not a bad thing. I'm thank you for doing it, and it doesn't bring the movie down at all, but it's not as tight as it could be.
It's not as tight as it could be, and it could easily be fixed, where Doug could say, "Roger, I don't get it, man. We've been on this case for 9 weeks. These robberies are all over the place. They're this, they're that, they're this. I don't know how many guys are doing this."
Yeah.
Like, play like you know what's going on versus, "Roger, tell me what's going on."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It just makes him sound stupid,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
No, you're right. You're 100% correct, and I like that fix better.
Well, thank you. I try. So that's when they're kind of speculating who these guys could be. And then Doug says, if you shoot them, they don't die. And Roger's like, well, some drugs do that, like PCP. And Doug says, nah, that's bullshit. Oh, okay. Sure. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And PCP does do that.
I know. And that was a big thing during the 80s, too. Like, we used to hear about it on the news all the time about, yeah, PCP, like, cops couldn't take him down. He was on PCP, man. Whoa.
Then it became bath salts, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, eating people's faces off in Florida and everything.
What is that? Is that a thing?
Bath salts?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. I'm more of the psychedelic drug guy. I don't really know much about the PCP side type drugs, so I don't really know.
When's the last time you ate a laundry pod?
Yeah, exactly.
Detergent pod. Anyways, phone rings. I'm going to call her Smithers, but it's Becky. Smithers calls, says she's got something for them in the morgue. Get down here as fast as you can. Cut to Roger and Doug in the car. And as they're driving, Doug asks Roger if he's ever wondered about his death day.
And this is so weird because, like, the shot of them driving is only like 5 seconds long. Like, you didn't need that. And it's ADR'd. Like, it's voiceovered, him talking about the death day, and then the conversation, keeps going into the morgue. And I'm like, why did you even film that little shot of them driving? You know what I mean? Like, it was weird.
It would make more sense once they were in the morgue looking at bodies, and Doug's looking at the bodies grossed out, and he picks up a tag and he's like, "This guy died yesterday."
Yeah.
I wonder if he knew the day he was going to die.
Yeah,
right?
and be like, oh, I wonder if he had a death day party or something. And by the way, with the Linnea Quigley dancing and zombie thing, it was essentially like a quote unquote death day not fantasy or dream sequence that he had, but it was basically
Doug?
him and Doug. No, I think it was Treat Williams or Roger, but Doug was in it, and I think it was after Doug died, like, you know what I mean? Because he was kind of swollen looking, and there's actually some makeup effects where he's got like a swollen face and he has water coming out of his mouth. I think it's all from like a dream sequence, essentially.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I would have loved it. Yeah, I'll be watching the extras after this. So they're now in the morgue. They're looking at a really cool dead body corpse, and they continue to talk about the death day, and Doug's like, let's say your death day was April 23rd, and somehow you knew that, and you could have a death day party. And Roger's like looking at him like, what the hell? And that's when Roger says, you have passed weird, Bigelow, and you're approaching degenerate.
And the whole thing about the death day was not as clever as the writer thought it was. So much so that, turns it into like a cornerstone of the movie. And you hear, it's like, he's like, oh, you could be having sex with a girl, you get a hot girl and this and that. And I'm like, okay, so you're just gonna what if you get shot or you're getting hit by a truck or something? None of it made sense. And I was like, I would have cut the Death Day discussion out of the dialogue, but boy, oh boy, did the writer double down on it.
Yeah, because Doug's getting super passionate about it. He's like, you could find a beautiful lady right in the heat of passion just as you're about to. And that's when Smithers walks in and says, sorry, did I interrupt something? Last night's conquest?
Yeah.
And you're just like, nah, not really. Nah.
Yeah.
Doug's just talking like an idiot again.
Doug's just a moron. Don't worry about
Roger's
it.
like, hardly, which is actually kind of funny. And Smithers says hi to Roger, and they have this little back and forth, and you immediately get that they were together at some point, because Roger's like, how have you been? And she's like, I have a phone, Roger. Using the mutilated remains of street scum as an excuse to ask for my health is not exactly what I call thoughtful. And Doug goes, and you call me degenerate? No. It's more like, oh.
No. Yeah. Every one-liner that comes out of Joe Piscopo's mouth, everyone, lands like a fucking wet noodle.
Wet noodle. So Roger's like, what's the story? Why are we here? And Smithers pulls back the sheet to reveal a grotesque body. It's one of the Cash and Dash guys, and she points out a scar on his chest. And she says, he's been here before. I certified him. He's a corpse. And she shows pictures of one of the Cash and Dash guys when they were originally in the morgue.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time, Dr. McNabb walks in.
With a sweet toupee that you can see the line where it's, glued to his forehead and everything.
So great. A la like William Shatner.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, we all make mistakes, Dr. Smithers. He immediately just launches into this thing.
He immediately launches into it, but also at the same time, he comes in with so much greatness. You know what I mean? Every single moment he's on the screen, I am so happy to see him. He is fantastic. And he's the right amount of... He actually, there's some bigness to his acting, but it's not too big. It's he's the perfect amount. Joe Piscopo is wrong in every way, shape, or form. Kolchak the Night Stalker, is the perfect amount of zaniness in this movie.
I totally agree. He reminds me in many ways, like his character, his bravado, reminds me of Kevin McCarthy. The guy in Inner Space, who's the cowboy. Yeah, he reminds me of that guy. He reminds me a little bit of, when we did the Hitcher episode on TV Obscura. Oh yeah, the Doctor. Yeah, Robert Vaughn. He reminds me of more of a bumbling Robert Vaughn, or like William Shatner in his later years. It's that kind of same cadence that it's overacting, but done in a way that you love it even more. Yeah. I'm totally fine with this overacting. Yes. Not Doug's overacting, but his. Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because Smithers, he's like, oh, well, we all make mistakes. And Smithers is like, well, I don't sign death certificates to someone who's not feeling well. And McNabb goes, well, the fact remains, either you screwed up or these two boys got up after you were done and strolled out of here. And then Smithers is like, I never forget a body, doctor. And she walks off all pissy. And then McNabb turns to Doug and Roger and says, in 5 years, she'll be good. But right now, she's too quick to jump to fanciful conclusions without really digging for the truth. And that, gentlemen, is what autopsies are all about. Meanwhile, Doug's playing with forceps or some sort of weird tool while he's talking, and he mumbles, asshole. That's actually funny when Doug says that. Yeah. When Doug mumbles asshole. And he goes, oh, I beg your pardon? And he goes, oh, it's fascinating. Yeah. And McNabb goes, oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
and I liked how he's holding those tongs or something. He's like, what are these for? And he's like, you wouldn't want to know. And that line is delivered fantastic. The whole, you wouldn't want to know. I love it.
It is so funny. Yeah. It's perfect. From there, you cut to Smithers in her office, smoking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I noticed that right away. Right away.
Reading a file. Roger walks in with 2 cups of coffee, asks if she wants one, and or if she wants 1 sugar or 2. And she's like, 2, but I gave it up. Then takes a big old drag off her cigarette, which at first you're like, but you're smoking? Roger says, I thought you gave up those. And she goes, yeah, well, I kicked one bad habit for another one.
So she gave up sugar for cigarettes.
Yeah, so, okay, sure.
Okay. You know what? Current studies show she might have made the right choice.
Really?
Yeah, weirdly, and I don't think they actually should have announced this, but current studies are showing that cigarettes don't cause cancer as much as they sort of thought they did. But I say, who cares? Like, I say they're still not good for you. As an ex-smoker of 20 years, I don't think they should have released that information. I think it should have just been the way it was, because I don't think they're good for you, period, at all.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But sugar is actually very bad for you.
True, it is.
And we have sugar in everything.
And we do. And that's probably one of my only vices.
Yeah.
That and coffee. Yeah, Roger walks in. He's like, look, I came in to give you moral support. And he walks over to, she's got a fish tank on her office files. But the fish tank is frozen?
Yeah.
Sure. And wouldn't that thaw out eventually?
Well, it's not frozen. What it has, what I understood or what I took as, it's probably all solid and it's like gel or something, but it has like a frozen, a frost that's clearly like fake aesthetic on the outside. And I think that's a part of the aesthetic. I think it's supposed to look frozen, but also be fake. I don't think it was like a movie thing. I think it's a thing that's like you and I could buy if we were back then type of thing.
Okay. I'll give you that.
It could, because why would you spend so much time on making this one little gag? It has to be something you can just buy, because why would you put it in there? Why would you spend the money on this?
I agree. and he's like, Roger looks at Smithers and goes, don't you believe in fish that swim? And she goes, no, they're just as pretty and I don't have to feed them.
My whole thing was, were those fish real at one point? Like, are those like plastic fish, or are those fish that were like put into some kind of gel and like allowed to just freeze in place like that?
This was the 80s and they did hurt animals.
I think it's probably the latter. Also, because we know that they used some real live duck, not live, but dead ducks later in the butcher scene.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Smithers says, what about those corpses? Do you believe me? And Roger says, there's something weird going on here. And he asks her if there's anything else strange about those guys. And she says, well, I found something in their skin tissue. Trace quantities of I knew I was going to have a hard time saying this. Trace quantities of sulfathiazole, a drug used in bacterial infections. And I'm like, oh, okay, this tracks. I dig this part, actually. Mm-hmm. I think this is a cool connection. And she's reading a printout, and she says, Dante Pharmaceuticals recently purchased 50 kilos of sulfathiazole. From there, you cut to Roger and Doug outside of Dante Pharmaceuticals. And Doug says, you do the talking, Raj. I'm not sure how to phrase this.
And Dante,
you're a fucking cop, dude.
Yeah, you fucking idiot. And Dante Pharmaceuticals is very interesting looking. It's where they filmed Biodome years later. It's the same building.
Really?
Yeah, the Biodome with what's his name, right?
Yeah, and Biodome's based on a real place in the desert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, real place that. Yeah, I remember that, dude. Back in the 80s, where they were testing that shit out. The Biodome thing was big in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, there's a great documentary about that. I think on HBO Max, maybe.
Okay.
Just a weird cult that had the best of intentions, but it just obviously didn't go the way it was supposed to. So yeah, from there, Roger's like, let's just tell the truth. We're looking for someone who hijacks dead bodies and brings them back to life to rob jewelry stores. It's funny. They walk into the front desk, and there's a security guard at the front desk, quote, reading a porno mag, a Penthouse. He's reading it sideways, if you catch my drift.
He's just fucking staring at the centerfold like a fucking... just like a fucking goon, like an absolute goon. He's sitting there staring at the centerfold. I was like, Jesus Christ.
They introduce themselves twice, but the dude is like so engrossed in his centerfold. Doug finally grabs the mag from the dude and says, sorry. This is actually funny. He goes, sorry to interrupt your erection, pal, but we'd like to speak with the management.
You know what's funny? That was a good
That's
line, and I didn't track it because I think that was part of the script. It's. I think Joe Piscopo is fine when he's reading the joke from the script and not ad-libbing something at the end of a scene. You know, that's the problem I have. I think this joke was actually the writer's joke, and Joe Piscopo delivered it fine, and that's great. It's his ad-libbing that sucks, which again is ironic because he has a fucking SNL background, which is like, you know, just improv and sketch comedy type of shit. Like, my God.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. He's too focused on his biceps, I guess.
Guess so.
The security guard wipes his nose disgustingly.
Yes, agreed.
And makes a call for Miss James. Cut to a shot where it's like such a cliche shot of a sexy woman, quote unquote, where they pan from her feet up of a woman, of Miss James entering.
And I think even the security guards like ogling her too. Like all three of them are ogling them. And yeah, it's the typical camera starts at her feet and then goes up. And she's a beautiful woman. She has a fantastic legs. But yeah, it's definitely the 80s, and she's definitely like meant to be ogled right here.
I'm not disagreeing with you that she's attractive, but I'm just like, if she's supposed to be...
Well, she's not dressed like overly sexual. That's the weird thing. Like, so they're ogling her, but she's actually dressed pretty like normally, like conservatively, you know? She's just wearing a skirt. That's no big deal.
Yeah, you nailed it right there, because I'm looking, I'm like, it'd be one thing if she was dressed like scantily, right? And they were like, oh my God. But she's dressed like a very normal professional person, and they're like, oh my God. And like, have you guys seen... have you never seen a beautiful woman before in your entire life?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And that's just 80s movies right there, you know, and where women fall and the role that they play, you know.
Yes, true. She's the quote femme fatale of this movie, right?
Yep.
So Roger and Doug introduce themselves to her. She's Randy James, Dante's PR person, and they ask her about the sulfathiazole.
I'm glad I didn't have to say that.
Jesus, I may just say sulfa. And they ask what the drug's for, and she shows them, and she takes them on a tour. While she's taking them on a tour, she explains that that this company makes cosmetics, for personal hygiene, toiletries, things everyone uses but no one likes to talk about. And Doug says, tampons, hemorrhoid cream, stuff for crabs.
Oh, man. Did you notice the amazing 80s pictures on the wall? Like the set decoration as they're walking through this scene.
Oh, it's great. The set decoration's great.
Dude, the set design in this movie is fantastic. And half of that's because of the awesome 80s decorations that they use in everybody's apartments and everything. But here specifically, I really liked the pictures on the walls. Like it's like they have like 5 or 6 pictures. They're so 80s, so impossibly 80s.
So impossibly 80s, and also something that is kind of reoccurring in this, a lot of magazine reading in this movie.
yeah, actually you're right. I didn't track that, but you're 100% correct. Yeah.
From Penthouse to Omni. Yeah, from there Doug sees a attractive scientist walk by, and he's like, sorry, I got to do some research. And then Roger like pulls him back, reels him back in, doggy. And Randy says all their products are tested on animals. And Doug goes, great, the dog gets skin cancer, so we don't have to. She goes on to say that sulfathiazole is a widely used drug up until the 40s when it was replaced by other compounds, but we still use it as an antiseptic agent and skin ointment, herbal skin ointment. Roger says, I hope I don't offend you, but he pulls out the bodies of the photos of the dead bodies of the robbers and asks if she's ever seen them before. She's like, never. Can't say I regret it either. As they're walking through the offices or the building, Doug asks about a room. It's called I call it the asphyxiation room, but it's I think it's labeled like
No,
I think it is labeled
it
it
is.
is labeled it is labeled it is labeled asphyxiation room.
Yeah.
But it's like a decompression chamber. And Randy says that it's sad but necessary. When we have to kill an animal, we put it in here. The room is airtight. The air gets sucked out in seconds, and the animal perishes quickly and quietly. I'm like, Jesus, that's horrible.
It is pretty horrible, and it looks pretty horrible in a little bit too.
That's when Doug, kind of funny, says, "Didn't I see one of these at Disneyland?" Stupid, but it's kind of funny. Randy wants to wrap up the tour. Doug walks over to another room, and he says, "What's this room for?" And the sign on the wall says, "Dangerous chemicals, no admittance." And Randy says, "Oh, it's for toxic waste products," and like kind of dismisses it off. And Roger says, "Yeah, that seems to be about it." But Doug says, "I gotta go take a leak. So, I gotta take a leak so bad my teeth are floating in here. Where's the little boy's room? I just gotta go pee pee."
I just gotta go pee. Like, so what I hated the most was that last little thing he added on to it. I thought it was fine to begin with, and then he's like, "I gotta go pee pee," and I was like, God damn it. And that's when I wrote that's where I put the note. Everything Joe Piscopo says is not funny. And I'm just like, just go away, Joe Piscopo. But yet stay here in the movie because I love you in this movie, but you're absolutely fucking terrible.
Yeah, just go pee pee and never come back.
Go pee pee.
So he goes pee pee while Randy walks Roger out to the lobby. Doug sneaks back into the main hallway and breaks into the, quote, toxic waste products room. And he uses his visitor badge to, like, basically rig the electrical to make the door open.
Yeah, he shorts it out.
Yeah, shorts it out. He walks into this crazy-looking lab. There's this thing in the center of the lab that looks like a... Well, actually, the poster art has the machine on it.
Yeah. It's like a giant circular. It's not a bed, but you can put a body on it. And there's like a thing above it and everything. But honestly, the set design in this room, and you see more of it, I think, later, like in the climax. There's these cool panel things around it too that are just really well made. Like the design of it and the craftsmanship of this set is fantastic. It doesn't feel low budget at all.
No, I totally agree. It looks cool. There's something on this machine in the center of the lab.
Under a tarp, yeah.
Yeah, it's under a black tarp. And Doug walks over to the machine, lifts up the tarp, and it's a mutated biker zombie that jumps up and starts kicking the shit out of Doug.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Imagine being one of the last people on Earth, being trapped alone with something not human, something always watching, something always waiting. What would you do? Where would you run? Where would you hide if you were haunted for 7 winters alone?
Podcasting After Dark presents 7 Winters Alone, a dystopian haunted house story by David Irons.
Available now in paperback and ebook.
And now, back to the show. Yeah, so apparently in the script, it was supposed to have no face, and Steve Johnson was like, yeah, I don't know, no face? What if we give him 3 faces? And apparently the studio was like, oh, that's even better than what we were hoping for. This is great. And it's an interesting looking creature design, but, you know, I start thinking about it, and I'm like, it's not an experiment, though, because they don't do experiments in this movie, which I think would actually be kind of cool, putting people together, like, by pieces and then bringing them back to life. But they don't dive into that. So that's literally what that person technically looked like in real life. You know what I mean? So he was a big fat biker with 3 faces, which is fucking terrifying, actually.
It is. Maybe it was like Rocky Dennis's brother.
Who?
Rocky Dennis from Mask. You remember Eric Stoltz?
I'm scared. I'm too scared to watch that movie. I'm afraid. I don't like medical deformities. They freak me out, and that's. And I know that was prosthetic, but I'm very much too scared to watch Under the Skin because there is an actor in there that does have a I think it's the Elephant Man thing, and I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be like disparaging of anybody, but I think it's like that whole thing, and I can't. I'm too like empathetic. I get too upset for somebody like that. I can't watch it. You know,
Mask is a classic.
Yeah, Cher's in it, but at least that's Eric Stoltz with prosthetic, and Under the Skin, that's what that actor looks like, and that's great and all, but it just kind of freaks me out. Sorry. I feel bad. I just feel bad for saying that, but it's true. That's my truth. That's my truth.
That's my truth. That's my truth. So from there, you cut back to Roger saying goodbye to Randy. They kind of have like a flirtatious moment while the security guard, they're right in front of the security guard, and he's reading his fucking penthouse.
Of course.
By the way, he starts apologizing about Doug's behavior. Roger does. And they're flirting. Cut back to Doug shooting the biker zombie. Roger hears the sound, pulls out his gun. Security guard pulls out his gun too and shoots at Roger.
Yeah, like immediately. Like right when there's sounds of gunfire, he goes to shoot Roger like immediately.
Roger blasts the security guard, shoots him, and then says, "Excuse me," to Randy, and he runs to go rescue Doug. There's an alarm sound. This is like it just gets more bonkers from this point on.
Yeah, it does.
The alarm sounds. Cut back to the biker zombie beating the shit out of Doug. Roger runs to help, putting his arms around the biker. Roger asks what this thing is, and Doug's like, "It's very ugly," and they're battling it back and forth. The zombie knocks Roger like kind of down, and he starts to fall back, and he accidentally falls into the decompression room. Doug is thrown into the button that closes the door to the room. As soon as the door closes, Roger starts shouting for Doug, but Doug has his hands full with the monster. You see this puppy at some point, like in a cage right by the room, like looking at him all sadly.
Because he was going to go in, they were going to put him in the decompression room. Now he's just like watching all of this unfold. And then
right.
And then you see somebody's hands come in and start pushing buttons for the decompression room.
Yeah, so while Roger's in the decompression room, there's a two-way mirror on the wall, one of the walls of the room. And on the other side of the mirror, you see buttons. It looks like the claw from Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
You just see the hand go up and push a button.
Yeah. And of course it's gloved too,
It's gloved all dramatically. And suddenly you see a countdown on the front door of the chamber, like an oxygen countdown. 90% oxygen, 90%, 80%, 70%, et cetera, et cetera. Doug is beating down the zombie. So he shot it, but it doesn't kill it. But then he takes a fire extinguisher out and he beats it down, and that's what kills it.
Okay, I mean, I'm going to tell you right now because I didn't know where to say it. They don't do a good job of sort of informing you what kills these zombies because some of them can
all over the place.
It's all over the place, and it's one thing that if I would fix. I mean, I'm not saying you have to make it headshots every time, but it's very inconsistent about what's going to kill a zombie and what isn't in this movie. It's not a big deal, but I did notice it.
Yeah, it goes to the writing.
Yeah,
I think the writing is just like it's not very good.
No, I think they had a great premise. I think Terry Black had a great premise already, and that was kind of the hook. And yeah, everything else is maybe not as strong, but the premise is great.
Totally agree. Roger is struggling for air while Doug finally finishes beating down the zombie. He runs to Roger, but it's too late. He can't get into the room. He's banging on the walls of the door, trying to get it open. The security guard, the porn-crazed security guard, is stumbling back in to the hallway, shooting at Doug. It's kind of cool. Like he slides over avoids the shooting, slides to the ground and grabs another gun and slugs the guy 3 times in the chest. The dude struggles and finally falls over.
Yeah, Joe Piscopo, his action stuff is fine. Like, he can do that fine. It's the comedy stuff. But then my question is, that security guard was a zombie then, right? Because he got shot by Treat Williams, comes out. Because he didn't look like he was, like, holding his stomach or anything. He's like, I'm going to go back to my duty. So he was a zombie, wasn't he?
I guess so, but then he can be shot. He can be killed with bullets, but the biker zombie couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, my only takeaway was that the biker zombie just had too much mass. I mean, he was a big boy. He was all fat and everything. Because later on, most of the zombies can get shot, except for the cash and grab guys. Yeah, it's inconsistent. It's horribly inconsistent of how much damage the zombies can take before they die.
Agreed.
Yeah, and then the only other pushback I'll say is, why doesn't Doug shoot the window out of the decompression chamber?
Exactly. Like, he doesn't even try.
He doesn't even...
You didn't even try.
I would have had him try to shoot it, but have it be bulletproof because it's so thick. Like, or have it crack a little bit, but, like, he unloads a whole clip into it. Try something. But no, he just pounds on it. Like, dude, you have a gun. Fucking shoot the glass. But yeah, he doesn't even try that.
Yeah, he doesn't. And instead, he beats on the wall. He beats on the door trying to get it open. You see Treat Williams struggling for air. You hear a heartbeat sound. Roger's eyes roll back, and he drops dead to the ground. Doug slams the door and screams, "Roger!" all dramatically.
Yeah.
Actually, it's really, really well acted by Pissed Off Capo.
Yeah, and so is the next scene.
Cut to the aftermath. Cops are on the scene. In the lobby, Doug is sitting in a chair, just looking so depressed and like tears in his eyes.
Yeah, like
sweaty.
emoting Joe Piscopo in this scene is emoting fantastically.
It's really great. Smithers shows up, asks what happened, asks where Roger is. Doug says Roger got locked in the decompression room and died the way dogs are supposed to die. No, actually, no animal is supposed to die that way. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
And then very dramatically, he's like, if I just got that fucking door open. It's great. It's really well acted.
As bad as Joe Piscopo is at comedy, ironically, is as how good he is at dramatic acting.
And I think, too, and clearly this is at the fault of the writer, if this would have been more emphasis on the drama than the comedy, I think would have been more popular. I think the comedy actually maybe holds it back a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, the constant one-liners. It works in Monster Squad because it's a bunch of kids and kids are funny. It doesn't work in this as much, in my opinion. I think it should have been a little bit more deadpan.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I would have maybe trimmed some of the comedy, mostly coming from Joe Piscopo, you know, in this. Yeah, I think you're right. I think some of the comedy does kind of keep it held up later in life, but I think right now, I think back in '88, it might have hit better if it didn't have so much of it.
I think, if you made the comedy about the absurdity of everything, and Doug and Roger are the straight men. Like, what the fuck is going on here?
Well, and my takeaway was from the listening to the director talk. I think he was trying to do that, and he was trying to have the comedy come from, like, later on when Treat Williams gets in that shootout with the zombie and they're just shooting each other with, like, bullets. And he's great like, I think, and that scene's great because, but he's like, I would have even had that scene, I originally had that scene actually go longer, because the comedy comes from the absurdity of it. And I think he's correct there. And I think that Joe Piscopo, maybe he just wasn't a strong enough director because this is his first feature, that he just couldn't rein Joe Piscopo in or whatever. And he was concentrated on too many other things. But yeah, I think a better director would have maybe cut half of Joe Piscopo's one-liners and forced him to maybe stay on the script a little bit tighter than maybe this director did.
Yeah, agreed. Smithers says that she wants to see Roger. You cut to Smithers placing her lab coat underneath Roger's head in the decompression room, which is kind of funny because it's like he's dead. Why does he need that for his head? And she's like, "Oh, I thought you were indestructible, Roger." And you see Doug sitting behind them, just looking sad as fuck. Smithers is like, what exactly happened? And Doug says, he's like, forget it, Becky. You wouldn't believe me. And she goes, try me. Doug takes Smithers into the lab where he found the body. Smithers is looking at the computer monitor nearby, and she's like typing in on it. And she speculates that whoever used this uses sulfathiazole as a preservative until they get these bodies on the machine. She starts typing in statistics about Roger. She writes his name, Roger Mortis, time of death, 11:45, cause, vacuum-induced embolism, asphyxiation. She looks up and she says, this is how they do it, Doug. This is how they resurrect the dead. Dramatic music, dramatic music. Doug doesn't believe her, and the computer flashes to the computer and it says, place body on table. Cut to Roger on machine, on the table of the machine, and Doug looking on dramatically. Smithers typing in on the computer, and around the surface of the table that Doug is lying on has like these weird glass tubes all around it. It reminded me of those things you use with your hands, like those needle things you push your hands through, and right, or your face. I would always do my face or my tongue.
They always had this like a sharper image or something where you could make the indent. Yeah, and the funny thing is, I was literally going to describe it the exact same way if you didn't go that route. And it's cool. Yeah,
we share the same brain.
That's right. And it's a cool look. I like it. And also too, you know what I don't have a problem with at all in this movie is just how they explain the resurrection thing. Like, of all the shit that we shit on with Joe Piscopo and some of the script and everything and the dialogue, I got no problem with the resurrection device. Like, in the way they explain it, in the way that they kind of just accept it, and everything. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with all of this.
I'm totally fine with it too. This is the inconsistency with Doug's character, because what he's about to say next doesn't really track with just the way he acts throughout this whole thing.
You mean when he goes, but what about the soul?
The soul, Becky. What about the soul?
That was way too insightful for Doug.
For a meathead, yeah.
So,
Smithers is saying how Roger's in remarkable condition, and Doug's like, he's dead, Becky. And she's like, it doesn't matter, Doug. Seems like someone's learned how to revitalize dead tissue like a starfish grows new limbs. What separates life from death? And that's when he's like, but the soul, Becky, what about the soul?
And the way he delivers it, it seemed like it was more, it would have been like more fit if it was in Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead remake. It's just like, it's like a big question about zombies and stuff. Like, that's a big heady question, and he just throws it out there and they just move right past it. And she's she says something like, oh, they figured that out too. And then boom, we're done with that question.
Yeah, we're like, we don't got time for this. It's 80 minutes. Let's go.
This is an 80-minute action horror comedy. We're not diving into some heady shit right now.
No, and then Doug's like, what if he wakes up like some mindless idiot? And then she goes, well, then I hope you shoot him in the head. So I like the fact that this goes by the zombie rules.
Yeah, or at least they're aware of it. They understand how it works.
They're aware of it, but no one shoots the zombies in the head in this at all. You notice that? There's no brain shots.
No, there's only one brain shot in the entire movie, and that's that fucking cop at the beginning.
Exactly.
I guess, and then Kolchak the Night Stalker later, but we'll get to that.
To himself. Right? But then he gets brought back. So there you go.
Yeah.
So she pushes a button and suddenly electric surges through Roger's body, and it's very dramatic. His body's shaking, the music is heightened, and then suddenly the lightning and static shock is off. He stops moving, and he just opens his eyes.
He's like, hey guys.
Doug. He sees Doug and Smithers looking at him. He's like, hi guys.
He's so happy and peppy right away.
Yeah. Smithers goes, you're alive. He goes, of course I'm alive. Must have taken a hell of a shot back there though. And Doug asks him how he's feeling. He's like, I feel... And he asks Smithers, he's like, what are you doing here? And she's like, we'll explain later. Roger finally says, I feel terrific. Incredible. Woo! It's great to be alive. Then he hugs Doug. And then Dr. McNabb on cue walks in, and he's like surprised to see Roger alive. Smithers asks Roger what's the last thing he remembers, and Roger says that they were at the lab looking around. Doug was fighting this thing. He gets locked in a room, and then he must have blacked out. I was rushing towards a bright light or something, and then I looked down, and then I saw myself, my body, just lying there, and I reached out to touch it, and then I got hit with like 10,000 volts. And McNabb says, well, it's uncommon, but it's happened before. Clinically dead people reviving at the last possible moment. Smithers says, Smithers is checking Roger's heartbeat, and she says, Roger's been dead for over an hour. And McNabb's like, what?
What?
And she goes, we literally brought him back. I'm not getting a heartbeat, by the way. And Roger checks the stethoscope himself, and he doesn't hear anything. And he's like, well, there's obviously something wrong with this. And this is funny because McNabb's like, give it to me, I'll check. And he puts his arm around Roger like super dramatically.
Yeah,
like, come here, buddy.
Yeah, what's that?
and he's putting the stethoscope on his chest, and he looks at Roger, and he goes, wow, you're faking it. And then he's like, I want you back in the lab for tests. And Smithers says he's dead. And McNabb doesn't believe it. And he goes, wow, I need to go tend to some real corpses in the other room. And he storms off. Smithers feels Roger's hands, and she's like, oh my God, they're ice cold. And he like jerks away from her.
Yeah.
Like dramatically. Like,
Yeah.
Why would you jerk away from the girl who used to jerk you off? And he does, and his hand hits a glass beaker, which cuts a major artery on his arm open. And you'd think there'd be blood, but he looks at the wound, and you see where there should be blood. There's like sparkly stuff. It's like I don't know if his blood's crystallized.
And it's interesting. I actually kind of like it, but then it doesn't come back into play at all later. And
It's
like
so cool.
It is cool, and I like that there's, like, it's a cool effect, and I'm sure it's because it's an effect. That's why we don't see it too often, because effects all cost money. But man, I would like to have seen it later, like in his wounds on his face or something. Get maybe have a reflective metal or something to give it that look to it. It was a cool idea that just doesn't come back into play at all again.
My feeling was that like the blood is crystallizing.
Sure.
And it's losing its substance.
Okay.
And it's fading away because suddenly that effect goes away, and it's just like empty in his arm.
Yeah, and maybe like it only is like that at the beginning when you first come back. Like if you cut somebody open after they first come back, but it fades away or something. I don't know. But it's cool. It's a cool little effect, even though he hits the glass with like the back of his hand and it cuts like the inside of his wrist. But yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So Smithers and Doug just look at Roger, and he's like, wait a minute, I'm no deader than you are. And Doug says, Roger, this is a resurrection machine. Cut to Doug and Roger in the lobby of the pharmaceutical, and Roger doesn't believe it. And Doug's like, just minute by minute, man. That's the only way to live anyhow. Like, okay, cool. Now you're like dramatic guy. But it's fine. I'm fine with that. Smithers walks up to them and says, Roger, you haven't heard the worst of it.
He goes, I'm dead, Rebecca. How much worse can it get?
Exactly. She tells him that the resurrection process has its side effects. The decaying of tissue. He's got 10 to 12 hours tops, and then all of the cells will dissolve into kind of a organic stew. Doug asks if he can go back in for a recharge, and Smithers says, this isn't a toaster oven, Doug. Come back to the lab. Maybe we can do something about it. And Rogers doesn't want any of that. He wants to nail whoever did this to him.
Yeah, ticking clock. I mean, he's got 12 hours to do it, and I get that. I like that motivation. And also, by the way, I like movies that have a ticking clock like this.
Yeah, because he's literally dead on arrival.
Yep. Yep. DOA. Reference to the movie that it was based on.
And then Doug's like, I'll personally rip out his heart with my bare hands, hold the heart in the palm of my hand, and we'll watch it stop beating together. And Roger goes, that's good, Doug, but let's find him first.
And I like that. I actually really like that exchange because I really buy that Doug is upset and he doesn't know like what to do with it. You know, he's angry, he's upset, and I buy their relationship because as much as I think that Doug is a Goomba, I do think that Treat likes him, you know, or that Roger likes him, and I think they get along well together, and I do like their chemistry together.
I agree. Roger first wants to find Randy James, and he tells Smithers they'll meet her at the lab, and she yells out to both of them. She's like, 10 to 12 hours, Roger. Don't throw it away.
Don't throw it away.
Cut to Roger and Doug in their convertible, and now Doug is driving.
Yeah, this is why it kind of threw me off, because like it'll go like one scene Doug will be driving, one scene Roger will be driving, and I was like, who actually owns this fucking car? Because it's pretty fucking cherry, and if I were Roger, I don't think I would let Doug drive it.
Maybe they share it.
Yeah, there you go.
Cherry car. And Roger's like, I feel fine. But then he's looking at himself in the mirror, and he notices his lips are like gray, which are almost like blue. And he's like, oh, I got to fix this. Here, let's go to the nearest drugstore. They go to a drugstore. He comes out with lipstick, and Doug asks, what did he get? And he goes, mulberry wine. And Doug goes, it's a good choice. Brings out your eyes. And it's like it's Doug, it's pissed off Capo doing his quote unquote, gay impersonation.
Yeah, it's such a product of its time and everything. It doesn't hold up well, and again, it comes back later. Like they double down on Joe Piscopo's gay impression, and I use quote unquote because it's not realistic, but it's that comedic version from the 80s, and I'm a real strong masculine man acting all feminine, and therein lies the joke and everything, and it's just it doesn't work. I don't think it worked then, but we people put up with it and everything, but it does not work at all now.
It doesn't, and it's funny because this scene, like this sequence here, it just doesn't flow really well. And they could have easily just said in passing, Doug could have said to Roger, like when he was dead, he could have been like, man, we've been through everything together for the past 5 years. We've been together,
Yeah.
like give a little bit more depth to who they are. Like Roger could have been dead and Doug could have said some joke that could track later on in the movie.
Yeah.
You told me that, if one of us was ever going to die, we're going to go out in a blaze of glory or something like that. But they didn't. They could have easily done that though.
And then here, and I agree with you. I totally agree with you too. And maybe even the joke that he tells over Roger's dead body would actually be funny, like the funniest one, and he doesn't laugh because he's dead. But here, saying the same line of like that lipstick brings out the colors in your eyes, but say that straight. Just say it like Joe Piscopo's normal voice. That would have been funnier. That would have been comedy right there. If he just said it like completely unfunny, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, hey, that's a good shade. It actually really brings out your eyes,
And
but they
Roger
couldn't do that
look at
back
him
then.
like,
You couldn't do that at all back then.
You couldn't do that, and Roger could have easily just looked at him and been like, "What?" And then Doug could have said, "I used to say that to my ex-wife all the time."
Yeah,
to get her to get off my back or whatever.
And not do the gay like voice or anything like that,
Yeah.
But as much as that is not funny, the way that they did do it with Joe Piscopo and everything, in the next scene where they run into Randy and Treat Williams is like talking to her at the beginning of the scene with like lipstick on his face, but doing it completely straight faced. That's funny. That works. And again, all the comedy that actually works comes from Treat Williams.
Agreed. Yeah, because Treat's like, how do women do this as he's putting the lipstick on? And Doug's like, I don't know, tribal memory? Like, whatever, it's stupid. Anyways, the two of them drive to Randy James' house, and as they pull up, she's in disguise trying to get in her car and split. And they confront her, they grab her before she gets in her car, and she looks at Roger and she's like, what happened to you? Because he's got full-on red lips, And he goes, I cut myself shaving. And then Doug's looking at Roger and like giving him the sign, like wipe the shit off your face, and kind of does a sideways thing where he gives him a handkerchief. So Randy can't see, and he's wiping off the rouge off his lips.
But see, that's funny.
That's funny.
That scene was funny right there.
That was funny. Randy says she's leaving because she got scared. They bring her into her house to question her while Doug is takes his jacket off and he pushes up his biceps and he's pushing him. Oh, he's got his arms crossed and he's doing that technique that Uncle Rico does in Napoleon Dynamite where he's making his biceps look bigger. You know? But that was funny. This is like him being serious.
Did you notice when they first walk in there? First off, her decor is amazing, but there is this weird device over sort of next to her that they don't call into, like, they don't really make note of, but I paused it and it's the size of, like, almost the size of her, but it's a telephone with a TV on it. So basically it's for video calls, right? But it's the size of like a freaking water fountain, essentially, maybe even bigger. But it's right next to her. It's got like a TV monitor and a telephone next to it. And I was like, oh my God, like that's Skype. That's like the original Skype device, you know?
The original Skype device. Yes.
Yeah, but she has some great decorations, some great 80s decor in this apartment.
It's classic 80s.
Yeah.
Her couch is like what is it, zebra skin or zebra print or something like that, or white tiger print, I think.
This movie is worth watching for the decor alone.
She's got a sweet VCR, which you're going to find out about in a second too. And Doug says, Roger tells her that he got decompressed and he wants to find the guy who did it. She says she can't help him. She doesn't know anything. Doug starts going through her purse. She gets pissed off, but he's pulling out. She's got clothes in there. He pulls out a pair of panties, and he's like, "Oh, extra panties, dead giveaway." Stupid.
Jesus
really?
Christ.
And pulls out a VHS tape. They take the VHS tape, pop it in a sweet VCR. The screen pops on, and it's Vincent Price.
Vincent Price.
Lying in a bed, dying.
Oh, no.
And he says, "Princess, this may be the last time I ever talk to you, and I want you to know certain things that I was unable to say until now." And then suddenly, right before he says anything else, there's gunshots in Randy's like back sliding door, and shatters the sliding door, and two mutated zombies come in. I will refer to these two zombies because I was like, they don't have names. I'm just simply going to call them Zombie Dana Carvey and Zombie Bubba Smith.
Okay, so Zombie Bubba Smith is played by DeJuan Scott, and the reason I bring it up is because he was in 2 episodes of Misfits of Science, show that we covered on TV Obscura, so go check that out if you haven't. And Buddy, what did you call the other one?
Zombie Dana Carvey.
Zombie Dana Carvey is played by Pons Mar, Maar, and bro, he played Saurod in the Masters of the Universe movie, the reptilian bounty hunter that Skeletor kills, aka my favorite character in the movie. And of course, like when he died, when that movie came out, I saw it in the theaters, 87, I was 9 years old. When he died, I immediately thought of Boba Fett because he was my favorite character, and I go, of course he fucking died. And that's when I realized that I only like characters that have barely little screen time, really cool designs, and die in the movies. That's when it kind of like solidified my lot in life. But Saurod, I loved that fucking character, and he fucking died. He was so cool looking. But yeah, this fucking dude played him, man.
That's funny because he's like licking his lips and making weird mouth movements. And I'm like, oh, it's like he's acting like a lizard.
It was 1 year prior. So yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, he still had it ingrained in him. He's like, this is what I was going to do as Saurod. But now I look like a zombie Dana Carvey.
And the other one was giving me vibes of the zombie from the beginning of Night of the Comet.
Totally.
The alleyway zombie.
Great callback. Yes, I agree. They start shooting at Roger and the three of them. Doug and Randy run through the like from the living room, they run in the bedroom area to the outdoor area of the house, and they don't get shot. But Roger goes to shoot back at them, and he gets pelted a bunch of times by their guns, like dramatically.
Yeah, and it kind of spins him around. He gets shot in the back too. It's really good squibs. It's fucking awesome. And also, like, I like it when machine gun fire hits the person, there's squibs, but there's also like stuff going on, like bullet hits going off on the wall behind them, because it kind of just shows that like a bunch of bullets are hitting them. And they do that here, and all the bullet hits are fantastic.
So good. So good. And Doug yells out, "Remember the good old days when guns killed people?" It's kind of funny, actually.
I feel like that was actually scripted, like a scripted line, you know, and that's why it was funny.
That was why it's funny. The three of them run to the back patio area while they're getting shot at. They go and hide. The zombies come out, and they're looking for them. Dana Carvey zombie looks into a hot tub, which has a table next to the hot tub with a boombox. Foreshadow. Just keep that in mind. And then Bubba zombie is raped by like a
pool, like something like a shed that holds your pool shit in it.
Yeah. And he punches through the door of that shed, and he pulls out Doug. Roger comes out of the water of the hot tub and pulls Dana Carvey into it, and they start beating the shit out of each other. Roger eventually gets out of the hot tub and throws the boombox into the hot tub, electrocuting zombie Dana Carvey.
AKA Sauron or whatever his name was.
Sauron, yeah. Doug is fighting Bubba zombie and gets knocked into a table that has like a umbrella. He takes the umbrella, half the umbrella stand off, like the spiky part that goes into the ground, and he shoves it into Bubba, who eventually falls into the nearby pool.
And this is where I realized I didn't quite understand what was killing them. The electricity, totally understand, but then the Bubba zombie, he just gets impaled, falls into the water. You would think that he would like get up shooting, but doesn't, you know. And I don't know if we didn't really sort of touch on it, but these two guys are totally zombified looking, right? Like they're totally zombified. So you got to figure they're at the tail end of their 12 hours, I guess. And this is, you know, me, guys and gals, and of course Zach does. This is me, like, world building. So I'm like, okay, but how did you motivate these guys to be goons for you? Because you bring them back to life. You know, do you tell them that, like, you do what I say you're going to do? I assume what you do is you tell them, do what I say, and then I promise I will fix you and extend your life. And they don't know that that's impossible, and they're going to melt regardless. You know what I mean? So I was just trying to figure out, like, what would the motivation to these goons be, right?
Well, it's tracks with Doug later that they maybe have been dead so long that they're brain dead and they can now be manipulated.
Oh, God. Yeah, good point. You're 100% correct. When they're quote unquote brain dead, then they can just be sort of manipulated and told what to do. We find that out later with Doug. Okay, good call. You're right. I should have used that knowledge here. Okay. But regardless, like both of these zombies, if they didn't fulfill their task, they are going to be puddles in probably about an hour and a half anyways.
Exactly. Randy walks out from the carnage and she says, "What's going on?" And Roger says, "Looks like someone wants you dead." And she's like, "I just play a tour guide. I don't know anything." And then she storms off. Doug walks over to Roger and says, "Roger, you were underwater for 5 straight minutes. Can you teach my girlfriend how to do that?"
Ugh. God. Jesus fucking Christ. And that right there felt like a Joe Piscopo line.
Oh, it's totally Joe pissed off Capo. Like, his whole shtick is, "Hey, where's the chicks at? You know, I'm this cool guy. Look at me, I'm a hunky boy." No, dude.
Look at my shoulder pads. Oh.
They follow Randy inside her house, and she's staring at her fish tank, which was shot to shit. One of 2 fish tanks. One is still fully intact, by the way.
Yes, I noticed that.
And she's staring at the dead fish in her fish tank, and she's bummed out about it. And Doug's like, "You can get more." And she's like, "These are the blue damsels. They're my favorite. My favorites always die."
was this necessary at all?
No.
Like, it doesn't come back. She never calls one of them like her favorite. Like, there's nothing about this little scene right here that comes back into play at all, and it doesn't even like come into play like in the next like immediate seconds. So like this is like 30 seconds that easily could have been cut.
I agree. And then miraculously, the television that was playing the VCR or the VHS tape just turns back on.
Yeah, that was weird. That's one of the weirdest things ever. And both times when I watched it, I was like, why? But why does it turn itself back on?
Yeah, it turns back on and it continues to play the video.
I would, and you know what? Take out the shot of the fish, show a shot of Treat Williams stepping on the remote by accident, and then turning it on.
Nice job.
Thanks.
Nice job.
We fixed it.
Yeah, we're fixing everything tonight, like fucking Bob Vila and shit. So Vincent Price back saying, "Princess, I hope you understand what I'm trying to tell you. Always remember you are very special to me." He mentions if she has any questions, she should talk to his lawyer, which never comes back, by the way.
No. Like you would think that tracking him down would have been through the lawyer.
Yes. Maybe I have major problems with the
how they get to like the final, like how they actually get there and figure out who it is,
because the continuity does not match up.
No,
story wise.
Fucking body.
Anyways,
doc.
Roger, so stupid. Roger recognizes the guy on the screen as Arthur P. Loudermilk, and he goes, "Didn't he just die?" Randy goes, 2 weeks ago. He's my father." She asks Roger, why aren't you, she's looking at him and he's all, riddled with bullets. And she's like, "Why aren't you dead?" And he goes, "They can't kill me. I'm dead already." She doesn't want to deal with anything that's going on. And Roger says they need her help and vice versa. She confesses that Dante was her father's think tank. They researched everything. Lie number 1, by the way.
Yep.
Roger says, lie number 2, I think we're on with her maybe.
Yeah, because
Roger
not
says,
her father,
including, Roger says, including the Resurrection Project. She says they delivered sulfathiazole to a guy named Thule in Chinatown. Say sulfathiazole and Thule 5 times fast together without your tongue twisting up inside and going down your orifice.
I'm gonna write in the show notes that drink every time Zach fucks up saying sulfathiazole or whatever.
Yeah, because Corey's probably gonna cut out some of them, but some of them he won't.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave a few in just so people can drink.
Please do, because I'm terrible with this pronunciation. Roger threatens to arrest her if she doesn't help them, and if she doesn't take them to Thule's location, while Doug's like sucking his stomach in and pumping his chest out.
Yeah, he's
it's
posing.
So distracting.
Yeah.
And then Doug's like, "Hey, Raj, you should probably change your clothes, man," because he's covered in bullet holes. Randy says that she might have something that would fit him, and Doug has some stupid banter of like, "Oh, some guy's clothes," and she's like, "An X from a long time ago," or something like that.
Yeah.
So stupid. I didn't even track it.
It's not even necessary.
Nope. Cut to Roger combing his hair in the bathroom mirror.
Wonderfully beautiful hair. Treat Williams' hair is magnificent.
Gorgeous hair, but he's combing it over and over and over and over again, like obsessively. But clumps are coming out of his hair. He starts freaking out looking at the clumps in the comb, and I'm like, welcome to being middle-aged when your just hair falls out. And he opens up the medicine cabinet mirror that he's looking at to put the brush back in, closes
to put
the
the
mirror.
brush back in that still has a clump of hair on it.
Yeah, because he's going to leave that like a calling card. Closes the door and flashes, and in the mirror is a zombie version of himself, just like oozing and gross.
It's the jump scare that we've seen done 1,000,000 times before this and 1,000,000 times after this. And it's usually pretty effective, but at this point, we all know it's coming whenever you close a goddamn medicine cabinet. Even if we're in like a comedy movie, if the camera's looking at the person closing the medicine cabinet, that's a mirror, I'm going to expect to have something pop up behind them, at this point.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with this.
Yeah,
it's a cool moment because clearly it's like he's losing his mind because he's dying.
Yeah, and he's fucking scared. He's freaking out. He's internalizing it. Yeah, this is fine. Like, I have no problem with it. It's just, it's a trope that we've all seen done 1,000,000 times.
Yeah. he screams, and then it cuts back to him in normal time. Doug says, "Hey, are you okay?" And he goes, "Great, fabulous." Cut to Roger coming out into the living room wearing like a Miami Vice outfit.
It's pretty fabulous.
It is fabulous, actually. While Randy is reading an Omni magazine while she's waiting for him.
I
and
love
Doug's
Omni.
reading Interview magazine with a cover with Eddie Murphy on the cover, which I think is a inside joke.
Yeah, it's SNL, yada, yada, yada.
Because they're buddies.
Yep.
Right? They get in their car to drive off, the three of them, and there's a parking ticket. Roger asks how many tickets this is this month, and Doug says, "What do you care?" And Roger goes, "Good point."
And that's kind of where the parking ticket gags end. I'm with you, man. I wish there was a bigger payoff for it or whatever, but okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Corey here. I just want to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Mr. Dookie Fly Swatter and
the Haunted Garage!
If you took 80s slasher movies and put it in a blender with metal and punk rock, you're going to get Haunted Garage.
Dookie and his crew were almost like making horror movies, horror punk.
But the gag is, you're in the splash zone. There was this real fervor at the time about shock rock, how bad it was for the kids.
I look over and I see Dookie with his arms on fire.
The flashes from the rear end.
He got brain surgery live on stage.
That was the raw stuff.
You walk out of there feeling like you've maybe left the planet for a little while.
Their legacy is they were unique.
They did things that weren't being done, and they did things that were outside of people's comfort zones.
Dookie was always just ahead of his time on that.
But it really rocked hard. I mean, he had really good musicians in the band.
We didn't want it to be only this deep. We wanted it to be this deep.
It's Haunted Garage. That's the whole point of taking things too far.
He's an icon of the underground exploitational genre.
Punk rock god of Hollywood.
G.G. Allen, but fun.
He's like a friendly vampire.
He was LA's Peter Lorre.
You need somebody in a movie, that's the guy that you want.
He puts everything he's got into it. He made his whole life his art.
I think that the whole world should know about it.
Slam, 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 slam.
And now, back to the show.
Cut to the three of them arriving in Chinatown. Doug is going on and on about all the Chinese food he wants to eat. That's kind of like a running theme for the beginning of this movie. It's him talking about how hungry he is all the time.
Yeah.
But that also taps out eventually.
Yeah.
Cut to Thul's market, like his butcher shop, and Professor Toru Tanaka is chopping a chicken leg or a duck leg, and they say they want to talk to Thul. He doesn't respond to them. Roger keeps telling them that they're the police. They want to talk to Thul. He puts the badge, his wallet badge, in front of Toru on the table in front of the cutting board, and Toru chops it in half, which is funny.
And Treat Williams' Roger is so crestfallen when he looks at his wallet cut in half. Actually, that right there, like the facial reaction of Treat Williams is one of my favorite like things in the movie. He's just like, why?
Why did you do that? It's a great wallet. It's really funny. And then Doug grabs Toru and he goes, "Listen, Mungo, we're cops. If Thul's not out here in 10 seconds, we're going to kick some honorable ass." Oh, yeah, that's a nice little racist joke.
Oh, so racist.
Suddenly, Thul comes out and tells Randy, "Always a pleasure to see you."
Thul comes out and sells him a Mogwai.
Right. Roger asks to see the man who takes deliveries for Dante Pharmaceuticals, and he says, "You found him. May I help you?" And Roger wants to know what Dante sent, and Toru pulls a cleaver, pulls the cleaver up like he's going to charge at them. Roger and Doug pull their guns out, and Thul says, "Nothing of importance. Life and death are both experiences of the same eternal spirit." And then Doug says, "You ought to write fortune cookies, pal." Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah.
And Thul says, "Let me illustrate." And he pushes a button under his counter, which is the exact same button that they pushed in the jewelry shop. I'm like, oh, everyone has the same button.
Oh, I know. I noticed that. I was like, oh, you basically just popped the little thing off of the table for that scene and just glued it on here. I was like, I know what you did there.
I'm cool with that.
I'm fine with that. Got no problem with it whatsoever.
Yeah. He pushes a button, and then above them is like an overhead lamp that starts raining down lightning. I'm like, oh, this is straight out of like Big Trouble in Little China at this point.
Yep.
Which came out a couple of years prior. Had maybe a little bit of an influence in that regard.
And we'll be getting to it on the Carpenter Factor in a few months.
We sure will, on our Patreon exclusive Carpenter Factor, which you all should check out. Toru Tanaka charges at Roger with his cleaver. Roger punches him with one punch and knocks him out. Thule in the melee escapes. The lightning that's shooting out from this lamp is causing all the animals in the market to reanimate.
So, and this is going to be an amazing scene. I got no problem with it whatsoever. But the world that they're building is, at this point, it's just the electricity that's bringing people back to life from whatever devices these are. And obviously, I got no problem with there being like a small resurrection device in his, whatever, chandelier thing. Okay, fine. I can buy that. But all the stuff that they told us before, all the things that you need and everything, that's all a lie. You just need the electricity. That's all you need. It's almost like Frankenstein,
It's exactly like Frankenstein.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And so, yeah, this is a crazy scene because all the animals are coming to life. Like a liver jumps off of a counter and hits Roger in the face. So now he's battling a liver. And he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And it's great because, like, Treat Williams is doing a great job, like, having it on his face and fighting with it. But yeah, I love him yelling, like, what the fuck?
Right? That's funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
Doug is battling a pig and he's like talking shit to the pig, which is stupid.
But the pig looks fantastic.
Pig looks great.
That's the weird thing about it. Like, all the dead animals in this, and Randy's getting attacked by ducks that are like cooked and everything. All the dead fake animals are fantastic looking.
They are, but Doug's saying things like, I'm never going to eat meat again, or now I'm going to be a vegetarian, like this running gag. It's like, dude, you're killing the scene right now.
Yeah.
You know what the sound should be every time he talks? Beep, beep. And so Randy is getting attacked by ducks. Her hair is getting pecked at. Doug shoots the pig in the mouth, like knocking its head off. Toru Tanaka, the butcher, jumps up out of nowhere and chops Roger's hand after he gets the liver off his face. Chops his hand, almost cuts his hand in half. It's a great shot because it like splits it in half.
Yeah.
And he shoots and kills the butcher with one bullet.
Or Roger does. I'm sorry, Doug does. Yeah. Sorry, Doug shoots him and kills him with one bullet. And then I like how Doug's like, oh, it only took one shot. Like, I like how he remarked that. And I think, didn't Roger say, like, they're not all zombies or something?
Yeah. And he grabs like a towel to wrap around his hand temporarily.
Yeah.
And then you see the refrigerator door like getting banged on and opens up, and out comes a headless bull corpse that attacks Roger.
It's fantastic. It looks amazing. It's done well. Everything about the scene is fan-fucking-tastic aside from Joe Piscopo's dialogue.
Roger is battling the bull. He gets it off of him. Doug helps him. And Roger shoots the lamp and explodes the lamp, overhead lamp, and all the animals stop moving because the lightning stops as well.
Did you notice that, like, that one duck like splits into like 4 pieces or something? It's really gross.
Yeah, some of the animals are just like falling apart, which is disgusting.
Yeah. And then the bull or the cow like melts or something. I'm just like, oh my God. It's good. I mean, like, in a good way, you're like, I'm disgusted by it.
Oh yeah, totally. Because Doug's next line is, okay, now I'm going to puke, which is actually funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
Good job, Pissed Off Capo.
You nailed 1 out of 25.
Right. Roger says Thule's gone. Randy looks at Roger's hand and says, hey, you're hurt. And Roger goes, lady, I'm fucking dead. And then Roger and Doug walk off, and she goes, well, it doesn't give you the right to be rude, which is really funny.
I actually liked that whole little exchange right there. I thought that was good.
They go into the back office of Thul's shop, and they start looking around. This is funny because they start throwing shit around. And Doug goes, you can never find anything good until you trash the place. It's just funny.
And that was the line that I wrote down, and I said that was Joe Piscopo's best line in the movie. And I agree with you. That was funny. I fucking like that because he says it, and he just knocks a piece of glass over or something gleefully, because he knows what he's doing. That was a good line. That was well done, and I think that was probably scripted too.
And it's funny because I thought about, like, in every cop movie, they always trash every place.
Yeah. And now,
like that.
Now they're calling it out. That's good. That's
Finally.
funny. That's a good line right there.
Yep. Doug's looking at a machine on the table that is has wires hooked up to a duck head on a piece of metal, and he turns it on, and the duck head comes to life and starts quacking. Zombie duck head. Roger even looks at it. He goes, "Oh, zombie duck head. What a concept." And then Roger gets all excited. He finds a piece of paper. He goes, "We got him." This is so funny. He goes, "We got him." And Doug walks over to look at it. It's a piece of paper, and he goes, "It's dates and initials." Like, how did you fucking know in this office that this little piece of paper that has initials on it and dates, this is the incriminating evidence they needed, right?
Yeah. For me, I think I enjoyed it because I think Roger grabs the duck by the mouth, the bill, to kind of keep it from quacking, at this point, he doesn't even fucking care anymore. He's like, a severed duck head quacking does not bother him at all, and he just fucking pinches the mouth shut.
Doug finally turns off the machine to get it stopped living. And Doug's like, this is funny because he's like, dates and initials. What does it mean? And Roger goes, I don't know. He goes, but that last one, APL, Arthur P. Loudermilk, that's a stretch, dude. That is a fucking stretch.
I mean, yeah, it is. I will say that I've seen cop movies that have a thinner stretch than this one. So,
This is pretty thin, though, because Roger goes, it's a list of death dates. Like, what? It is?
Yeah.
And then he goes, Doug says, who do you think they are? And Roger goes, well, only one way to find out. And cut to the three of them back in the car. Doug's driving, Randy and Roger in the back seat, and Randy is sewing up Roger's hand. Very nicely, by the way. And Roger's looking more deathly. After she sews up his hand, she uses her teeth to bite the string and just cut it, I guess.
Yeah, I was like, why is this scene even necessary? But I think, looking back, and I think what you called how the butcher knife kind of, I think it was supposed to be more damaging, and I think she was putting his hand back together, but it just didn't come off that way, and I was like, why do we need this scene at all?
You don't, because I mean, you're supposed to get the sense that they're interested in each other, but they don't do enough throughout the movie to really define why they would be interested in each other other than just being attracted.
Yeah.
There's nothing else other than attracted.
I think you could have cut this scene right here, this scene in the car, her stitching him up. And it's only a minute. It's only 45 seconds. Not long at all, but I don't think it's necessary, to be truthful.
This scene could have been 10 times better if while she's sewing him up, she said, I'm sorry I didn't trust you guys, or I'm sorry that I led you guys astray. Thank you for saving my life back there.
Yeah, because this scene doesn't inform anything about the characters, any of the characters. And that's why it feels useless, because there's nothing there that we don't already know,
No, and Roger could have said, I may be living on a short sentence, but I can still appreciate a beautiful woman or something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And so they arrive at a library, which I think it's not LA Library. It's Beverly Hills Library, I think.
Yeah.
And Doug's like, oh, I never been to one of these. Never been inside of one of these.
Just shut up. Just shut up, Joe Piscopo.
Just
shut up.
This is the beginning of a sequence where I'm just like, oh, really brings down the energy.
Yeah, the pacing up until this library scene, the pacing is just boom, 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 and then luckily that when it does drag, it's very short because the movie itself is very short, but it's noticeable in this scene right here.
Yeah, because this cuts to them looking through obituaries and newspapers of people. And Roger's got a stack of newspapers, and he gives them out to everybody. And Doug's like, hey, can I have March? Which doesn't mean anything. And then Doug says, while they're looking through the papers, he goes, this is amazing how many people have died in the last 3 months. Many of them I haven't even heard of. Stupid.
So dumb. So terrible.
Dumb. Randy is reading the names of deceased people, like a guy who was the Denim King, then a microchip wizard, and other millionaires. And then Roger goes, see a pattern? And Doug says, sounds like a bunch of wussies to me. And then Roger goes, they all have disposable cash. And Randy goes, rich dead people. And Roger says, yeah, this is not a routine case. Guess they can have their obituaries back. And suddenly he looks at his hands, and they're getting older. And then he looks at the clock, and he's having a moment. Doug asks why he looks so freaked out all of a sudden.
Bro,
I'm fucking dying.
I died. I'm a zombie. Now I'm on a ticking time bomb to become a melting pile of goo. Why do you think I'm freaking out? I should have freaked out before now.
He should have said that, but instead, this is what he says. These obituaries, they're writing new ones all the time. They're writing mine right now. Roger Mortis, beloved husband of nobody, father of none, who always thought he had to go out in a blaze of glory. Suddenly he just freaks out. He leaves their area of the library, and he's running, quote unquote, running out of the library in the most, they told him, don't worry, we'll speed this up. Just jog. He's jogging through the library dramatically, right?
With Joe Piscopo.
Joe Piscopo is in full pursuit running after him. But in a library, he's following the rules. He's whispering, yeah. Roger, come back here. Not yelling at him.
And then when he finally catches up to him, he's out of breath. Joe Piscopo's out of breath for no reason.
Doug's out of breath. He's panting. I'm like, aren't you a fucking muscle guy? Obviously, you don't work on your legs, dude.
Yeah, no cardio whatsoever.
No cardio. And Doug's like, Raj, we don't got time for this. Well, duh. And Roger goes, I can't live a lifetime in 6 hours. And Doug says, remember in training, you can't be a good cop if you're a dead cop? Well, here's your chance to prove them wrong. You're good and you're dead. Let's go find these suckers and trash their ass, man. And then Roger laughs and goes, it's asses. It's plural.
And I will say, I realize now the whole beloved husband of nobody, father of none, that's actually going to come back to play later when they go to the mausoleum. And he's like, I noticed that it doesn't say father. So actually they needed to put that dialogue. They're like, we need this dialogue in here because it kind of explains something later. And I do like how later asses comes back, when he says asses versus ass plural. So that's good too. But the whole library scene is just it's bad. It's bad. It's weird. It's only 3 minutes long, 4 minutes long, but it feels like 15 minutes. And the fact that Joe Piscopo is out of breath chasing down Treat Williams is just, that's just sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. And now Roger is revitalized because of Doug's pep talk, right?
And not even a good pep talk. They said you can't be a good cop if you're a dead cop, but you can be both. Even Treat Williams, not Roger, but Treat Williams, almost looks at the camera really? Is that the dialogue we're going with here? Okay, all right.
Okay, because I thought Doug had something about, live for the moment, or let's make sure this doesn't happen to anybody else.
Yeah, that would have been better. Let's get these guys so that no one else has to fucking deal with what you're dealing with, man.
Let's make sure the dead stops with you.
There you go. Wow. Yeah.
Wow, look at this, guys. We're rewriting our own version, part 2.
I think we did that with Deep Rising, too, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, actually. I'm sensing a trend with Treat Williams.
Maybe.
Treat.
This
is the part where you tricked us. So cut to them, the three of them, back in the car. Now Roger's driving again.
Yeah, I know. This is what threw me off. I was like, who owns this car?
And cue the next, again, we're still rolling into the bullshit. I wrote all this down because I even paused it and I had Kristen watch this. I'm like, does this make sense to you? And she goes, no. So Roger's got a smile on his face. He's looking at Randy, who's in the front seat, passenger side, and Doug's in the back. And he starts telling a story. He goes, you know, the population of the world is so big now that half of the people who've ever lived are still alive today. If you took all the people who've died since the beginning of history and all the people who are alive right now, it'd be about the same number. I'll keep going.
Yeah.
So if anybody ever asks you when you're going to die, you just say, well, I don't know. So far, it's only happened to half of us.
I'm with you and Kristen. I didn't understand this, and I rewound it as well because I was like, oh, this could be an interesting factoid. But I'm like, so wait, are we saying that all the dead people, like what are we trying to say here? What? And nothing. Like at the end of the day, none of this has anything to do with anything like in the movie, because Joe Piscopo at the end of it goes, yeah, well, if you take the fucking weight of my ex-wife and divide it by the people in Cleveland, blah, blah, and then it just like, it fades out because it's like, even the movie's like, no, Joe, just stop talking. But this whole scene, what was the point of that dialogue about dead? The writer was like so fascinated by that factoid, I think, but they probably read it like in a Time magazine or something, but they did not convey it well on screen.
It would be now what the only way you could save that scene is instead of Doug saying that stupid fat shaming line about his ex-wife being overweight, is if Doug goes, did you read that on Facebook? That would be funny.
Yeah,
that would be funny.
That would be
and
funny.
just cut, and then you cut to the next scene, which is the three of them in the elevator of a morgue. Back with Smithers. It's like, oh, that scene went nowhere.
Didn't even need it. Need it.
So the three of them are in the elevator, and Smithers, they get off the elevator and they start walking in the hallway of the morgue, and Smithers shows up.
And Randy starts giving her shit like immediately.
Immediately. Catfight.
Catfight. Wow.
It's so funny, yeah, because she's like excited to share some news with Roger, that some developments she's found, and Randy's like, "You work here?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Yes." And Roger's like, "Yeah, she's an expert in forensic pathology." Oh, what a unique accomplishment. And Doug's like, did it get chillier than usual, isn't it? Which is actually funny.
Yeah, that was actually decent right there. And I think that was probably Joe Piscopo. But why? Why did she hit the ground running with the cattiness? But we should note that, like, at this point, Roger is starting to look pretty bad. I think they actually, up until a certain point, they actually do a really good job of making his makeup kind of subtle, and then it stops being subtle. There's like a middle point, which is where we are here. But I like when he goes full on post the ambulance scene and everything.
Me too.
But the idea behind it all is that when he was alive, he was very stuffy and everything. And he basically comes alive after he's been killed, and he becomes more and more punk, more and more awesome, to the point where we'll talk about it, the ambulance scene. When he comes out of that, they turn him into like a full-on punk and everything, which was really big at the time. So basically, Roger becomes cooler the more dead he becomes. Agreed.
He gets more like the zombies in Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So Smithers has Roger like on an examining table for dead people, and Doug even makes a joke about that. And she has him open up his shirt to look at his chest, and she sees the bullet holes, and she's freaked out. She's like, what's happened to you? And he is, like you said, he's falling apart. And she's like, based on my exam, you got like 3 to 4 more hours to live. You're decomposing more rapidly than expected. Roger wants to leave and get shit done, but Smithers says she might have found something. She found something in Dante's files to extend the resurrection beyond 12 hours. And then he goes, "Can you guarantee that?" And she says no. And he goes, "Then I can't take that chance." And then she goes, "Well, it's my job." And she starts saying this whole spiel about, Roger, 10 years on the streets, risking your life, and it's still not enough. Like, oh my God. Do you blame the fucking guy? He's got 3 hours. He wants to find out who did this to him.
Yeah.
Like, no. And then Roger goes, I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment. And then Doug walks up and goes, so what's next, guys? Which is so stupid because it's like, we're going through this moment. His ex-girlfriend wants to keep him alive. He wants to get out of there and find who did this to him. And Doug's like, hey guys, I'm just going to interrupt this like tit for tat and break the ice. No.
And there'll be even a worse one soon at the end.
It's coming.
At the end of this scene, yeah.
Yeah. So Roger then says, I want to go to Loudermilk's grave, and says to Doug, I want you to check out Loudermilk's lawyer, which never comes back, by the way.
No.
And he goes, let's meet back at Randy's house. Randy doesn't want to go to the grave where Loudermilk is, and Roger's like, I want you where I can see you. Okay. Because, up to this point, it's like he can't trust her now. I don't know. And so the three of them, Randy, Roger, and Doug, leave. And Smithers is still standing in the morgue room, and she's like, I'm not giving up hope. And that's when Roger smiles and then leaves.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just want to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hello! La la la. I'm Adam.
And I'm Corey.
And we are the hosts of Cartwright, a Seinfeld podcast. We are breaking down every single episode of Seinfeld as we watch it, reliving this amazing show.
That's right, it's a trip down memory lane for all of us 90s kids out there. You can find Cartwright, a Seinfeld podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and Patreon.
La la la. Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits two challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV, and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.
And now, back to the show.
Cuts to Roger and Randy getting in the red convertible, and there's a Dodge Daytona across the street from them, and I'm like, that's got to be
That's
Doug's
got
car.
to be Doug's. Yeah, you're right.
Like that totally looks like a meathead's car.
Yeah,
And I like Dodge Daytonas. Go back to our Wraith episode where I glazed the donut of Dodge Daytona.
Yes, no, I actually knew that you liked Dodge Daytonas because of it.
I do. Who pulls up, tires screeching behind him, right in front of them, but it's Dr. McNabb in a sweet BMW. And Doug comments on the nice wheels that he has. Must be a lot of money in carving up dead people. This is important, right?
Yeah, no, it is.
And McNabb is looking at Roger and he goes, little early for your post-mortem. Roger goes, just stop by to reserve a body bag.
And he gets so tickled by this. He's like, that's funny.
Yeah, McNabb laughs and he drives off.
And I love how Roger's like, I love that guy.
Yeah, he's like, I love that guy.
And I think he does. Like, I actually think he does love that guy.
Yeah, and Doug's like, I can tell. Which is okay. And so Roger drives off, and as he drives off, the camera freezes on Doug's face, looking concerned, because we know this is the last time we're going to see Doug.
Yeah, or at least
which is actually really cool.
Yeah,
it's a super common trick that they use, like to tell the audience that something bad's about to happen, and he's got a good look on his face.
Yeah,
for that giant head of his.
Yeah, I like it. Not his giant fucker. Yeah. Oh, Joe Piscopo's got a weird body.
Sure does. From there, we cut to the cemetery. Randy's leading Roger to Loudermilk's grave.
This whole scene reminds me of One Dark Night.
I think it's at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, by the way. Roger jokes, maybe I should pick out one. I wonder if they take MasterCard. Stupid. And he goes, nice place to spend the rest of your life. Swaying palms and the smell of jasmine. Quiet neighbors. I'm like, oh my God, just stop. Stop with the jokes.
Just walk in. Just go in.
Just go. They walk up to the mausoleum door. Roger's outside looking up to the sky to observe a shooting star. And then he comments on it. She's like, what are you doing? He goes, it's a shooting star. Like, oh my God. Sure. They walk to the door and Randy says, so now what? I don't have a key because there's a big padlock on it. Roger pulls out his gun. He goes, I'm a cop. And he shoots the gun, the lock off. They walk into the mausoleum. There's like a lamp and a guest book over by the side.
Yeah.
And Roger's like investigating the door where Loudermilk's grave would be. And he goes, looks like he's resting comfortably here. Randy's looking super unsettled. And then he says, what's your real relationship with Loudermilk? He goes, outside it says beloved husband, but no mention of a darling daughter.
Yeah, and so I didn't even pick up on that until our conversation right now, but that's why I think that in the library that dialogue was important for him to say, for Treat Williams to say, because that comes into play right here.
But this could have been in the car after she was sewing him up, and he's looking at his hand, and he's like, he could have said, I'm falling apart here, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, my obituary is being written as I breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that dialogue didn't have to happen in the library, or that scene in the library didn't have to happen. But that dialogue, I think, was necessary. Just at some point, they should have inserted it. And yeah, I'm with you. Probably the car, like when she's just have all of it condensed. They could have even just bought a newspaper, you know, locally, you know, but have it all condensed in that car scene, you know.
And I get the whole they have to figure out the connection with the millionaires, sort of. They don't really need to.
No, they don't, because it still will, like, all their destination will still lead to the same place, whether they understand the millionaire connection or not. So you could make that connection later when you get there. Them trying to, like, them trying to figure out all the dead people in the obituaries. It was a little bit convoluted.
Yeah. And so, by the way, I want to point out the fact that, you know, he had like a rag around his hand at the butcher shop, and then now he's got this very fashionable purple band around his arm that matches his jacket. So I would have liked to seen a scene where he rips fabric from his jacket, but because I'm kind of thinking that's what they were implying.
Yeah, no,
the inside of his jacket.
I noticed the exact same thing. It's not a bandage. It's like fabric that matches his jacket, and
it's very cool.
It's really neat. Yeah,
I rock that. So so he's like, you know, no mention of a darling daughter, and she goes, all right, see, I met him in the hospital. I was there for drug rehab. This reminds me of a Kristen Wiig character where she's constantly lying.
Yeah,
I was there for drug rehab, and he took me under his wing. See. Daughter he never had. And while she's saying this whole spiel, Roger picks up a photo of Loudermilk with Ronald Reagan.
It's so 80s.
It's
so
funny.
Fucking
So
80s.
Fun fact, not fun fact, but I just like talking about it. My stepdad was a tile contractor, did a lot of work he worked in the Bay Area, and he was doing the tile for the creator of Atari games.
Yeah.
And he was in his basement, and there were stacks of Atari games everywhere. And Mike had all the tiles, like, where do you want me to put this? And the guy's like, just move those boxes out of the way. And there's a big picture of him with Ronald Reagan. He's like, where do you want me to put this? He goes, just throw it over there with the rest of the junk.
Jesus Christ.
No one cared about Ronald Reagan.
Oh, Ronnie.
Oh, Ronnie. I did.
Hey, I'm going to go eat some jelly beans.
I'm going to go eat some jelly beans and be resurrected by, what day is it? I don't know. Okay, so Randy says, see, he got me this great house, and he set me up with a great job at Dante's Pharmaceuticals, see, yeah, and I bet he never knew what kind of snake hole he was dropping me in.
Lies,
lies, more lies. And Roger goes, so this zombie thing comes as a complete surprise. And she goes, I swear, see, I swear. Roger turns on the lamp to get a better look, I guess, of things around. And when he turns the lamp on, he sees numbers written on the inside of the lamp in red paint.
Yeah. I mean, is this supposed to be blood? Because it's kind of like drippy, but like, yeah.
I think, is it supposed to be blood? And then he goes, zoinks, like, I think he left something for us to use. And then Randy goes, Ruby, Ruby, Roo. Fucking, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong, bro. You're not wrong.
Someone had the time to write the numbers down. Well, we know that there was a body put inside that morgue, and it's not Loudermilk. Right?
Yes.
Inside the mausoleum.
And so was it Loudermilk that wrote the name? No, but Loudermilk's running the whole show. So
or a dude that they put in there but wasn't dead yet.
Yeah, and he wrote a code? Like, just write someone's name, you know?
The code that spells out more than Body Doc.
Yeah.
More letters than Body Doc, by the way.
I didn't count the numbers.
Because I'm like, that's more than that's not 7. That's like, because there's like 8 or 9 there's 8 or 9 numbers there or something. I didn't totally track it.
That's hilarious.
But come on. It's like it's not even 1 through 26, right?
Yeah.
Like A is 1,
yeah.
Z is 26. It's like 7. Oh, that's B. Because on a keypad, that's B.
Yeah,
or whatever.
It's
like, no.
It's the phone thing. We'll figure that out in a little bit. But I'm with you. It's like, yeah, when I saw this, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna let it. And you know, like, you don't really have time to think about it because the movie's so short and so quick. You're like, okay, but yeah, this was a bit of a head scratcher to me. And also, like, how does no one saw that? Like, nobody saw that?
Yeah, and fucking Randy's like, Jinkies, I think we should go now. No, I'm joking. She doesn't say that. But it's like, it's suddenly this Scooby-Doo thing.
It does, yeah.
He was old man Smithers all along. Zoinks. So from there, Roger writes down the numbers, and you cut to Roger and Randy arriving back at her house. Roger saying, oh, Doug should be back by now.
No, they arrive at Doug's house. That's Doug's house.
Oh, no. That's it's Randy's because they're in her shower. They're in their shower later.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I thought that was Doug's house, and I was like, oh, Doug's got a nice house because they do show different like parts of it or whatever.
Yeah,
but
because earlier he says, let's meet back at Randy's house.
You're right. You're 100% right. And I'll leave all this in. I won't cut it or anything. But yeah, you're right. Okay. So it's Randy's house, not Doug, and that's why they weren't so shocked by the shot out windows, because at first I was like, shouldn't they? And he's like, oh, I guess Doug left the TV on, you know, because the TV's going. But, you know, they weren't shocked by the windows being shot out. That makes more sense now, knowing that, okay, they've already been there. They're expecting to see that. Okay, I thought that was Doug's place.
But you know what it would have made more sense if it was Doug's place, because you could say Doug should be back by now. Maybe thinking Doug parked his car inside his garage, but wouldn't you think they looked to see if Doug's car was even around on the street that they were at?
Yeah, you would think so. But we know in LA with street parking, Doug would have probably in theory had to park like blocks away because of street parking.
But then they didn't care about that because they got tickets all the time.
That's right. Yeah, it's not a tight script.
Right, bro.
Doug is fucking Scooby.
Fucking no shit. He is. No, he's scrappy.
Yeah, good call. Good fucking call. He's scrappy. Fucking piece of scrappy.
So they go inside the house. Yeah, the lights are not turning on, but the TV's on, right? And the TV is playing DOA. Randy walks up to the TV, the old noir film from the 50s or something.
Yeah, it's from the 50s, and you know, we kind of alluded to earlier, but we might as well talk about it now. This film DOA, about a salesman who gets kind of like poisoned, and then he has like 24 hours to find out who killed him. And I think it's the girl. He finds out her, and I don't know what happens, but I think he's going to probably kill her. But that was the inception for this film. It was like, we want to do something like that. The writer's like, I want to do something like that. But instead of like, you know, having a poison killing them in 24 hours, it's like they're going to be turned into a pile of goo. You got to chase down the killer. Obviously, it's not like a remake or anything, but it's an inspiration for it. But yeah, the famous, like a noir film from the 50s called DOA. So look that up. But it's playing on TV, and I'm glad I like that kind of stuff. I like it when they put it into the movie because it was the inspiration for the film. I like shit like that.
I agree. And they remade it in the 80s with Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan.
Was it called DOA as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Okay.
If you like your Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan shaken, not stirred. It was after Interspace, so yeah, go check it out.
Okay.
Yeah, so Roger is off in another room, I'm assuming, because they don't really say where Roger is. But she's watching it. She's getting freaked out because it's too close to home, right? Because she's realizing that she's the femme fatale, and she's sort of. And she's like backing away from the TV, and she backs into her fish tank, which is behind her, the one that hasn't been shot out. And who's in the fish tank, upside down with his head and tied from the ceiling, but Doug.
Oh. I almost rejoiced at this point.
And like bloated as fuck. Like his face is super bloated out. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool effects. I just want to note that it's like totally disturbing because when you see him later, he doesn't really look like that.
No, but I think in the dream sequence that probably happens between now and then, he has the bloated face in it and everything, but with the Linnea Quigley dancing zombie thing. But I don't know like when it. Oh, you know what? Did they have? Maybe it's when did maybe. Okay. Anyways, I'll say in a second. So finish the scene out.
Yeah. So Roger, she calls Roger over. Roger says, "Let's get him down." Like he's looking sad, but he's not super like devastated by it. He's just like looks concerned. They cut him down. Well, they don't cut him. They don't show him cut him down, but it cuts to Roger putting a sheet over Doug's body. And then Roger walks into the bathroom. You were going to say about the...
Well, no, that's perfect. Like, so he walks into the bathroom and I was like, why is she like taking a shower now and everything? And thinking about having a dream sequence and everything. And I wonder if in between bringing down Doug's body and her being in the shower, there was a sex scene between Randy and Treat Williams. Because like, why is she taking a shower right now? You know?
Oh, yeah, she wants to wash the filth off.
Yeah, so that's my only thought. Maybe that's where there was a dream sequence there. I don't quite know, but I'm also very confused as to like why she chose now to take a shower.
Yeah, no, I that tracks. I get that. Yeah, and wouldn't he be in a hurry at this point because he's got maybe like a couple hours left?
Yeah, you would think so.
You'd think so. So yeah, Roger walks in on her. Randy's like apologizing. Says she didn't want to tell him. I didn't want to tell you. See. I lied about the drugs. I was in the hospital because I was dying too, see? I was dead, see? Yeah.
Makes me want to watch Dick Tracy, bro.
Yeah, nice. And she's like, yeah, I got brought back too. And they said, but I'd have a normal lifespan, see? As long as I help them. Yeah. And Roger asks, who? Who helped who? But before she could answer... She looks at her hand. She looks down at her hands, and her hands are decomposing. They're getting old.
And so this effect, by the way, amazing. So what it is, they filmed it in reverse. She had the fake old makeup on and everything, and what they had off screen, just barely off screen, was airbrushes painting her hands skin color, like spraying them skin color. But if you go in reverse, it looks like they're losing their skin color, and you see the veins and everything underneath. And I was like, it's fantastic. It looks amazing. And I was like, is that stop motion? How do they do that? But it doesn't look like stop motion. It's because it's in reverse.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. And what happens next is probably one of the most disturbing parts of the entire movie.
So she looks up and the side of her face starts melting, and thank God for 4K Blu-rays because you can see the cords, the strands, because that's her face, and he basically Steve Johnson's like glued like real microfiber strands to her face and just pulls. Like that's her face being truly like elastic, but you can see like the 8 strands that are kind of hanging getting pulled, but you couldn't see them on VHS back in the day. Like it's only because we're fucking watching shit in 4K and everything that you can see it, but it still holds up today. It doesn't even matter. You can barely see the strands. Like I'm only calling it out because, you know, it's what we're doing here. We're 3 hours in, but it's really good. It holds up well. You can barely see them if you're not looking for them. And it's very, very effective. And like all the zombie makeup and everything in this movie. It's done so well. It's truly the best part of the movie, I think. Treat Williams and the zombie shit are the best parts.
I agree. And I love how you're like apologizing for this when we've really called out the flaws throughout this movie.
We really have. And
but
again,
I just want to say, I'm sorry about what I'm about to shit on.
I'm sorry about what I'm about to say. And again, I want to remind everybody, I fucking love this movie. It's fucking
we
great
both
movie.
Do.
Just like
we both do.
I know.
But we're being honest.
Yeah, we're being honest.
And honestly, there are moments where just like, but yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
She's like apologizing to Roger.
She's apologizing the way I'm apologizing.
Same way, yeah. And fun fact, Corey's face is falling apart as he's talking.
As we're talking, yeah. It's all
Zoinks,
the whiskey.
Like, right row. Anyway, she's falling apart. Her body totally decomposes. Her head falls off, rolls over to the side of the shower, and then keeps talking, which I always think is funny because it's like, it's not possible. And she's like, I'm sorry, Roger, please forgive me.
And it's a really good fake dead body. It's a really good fake head.
So cool.
Except there's like this layer of skin on it that is like superimposed that kind of like fades away. I don't mind it. Honestly, it's not a big deal, but it's
okay.
It's the only part of it that is dated. Because again, even with the strings, if you're not looking for them, you don't see them, and the effect is fantastic. Like everything about this scene is actually pretty fucking scary and really, really well done up until like this literal last shot of like her face. They superimposed her face on the zombie head, and then they kind of just do an After Effects fade away, you know?
Yeah, it's a little cheap, but Roger's shocked, and I love this. He's shocked, and he leaves the bathroom and he goes into the hallway, and he's like panting because he's so freaked out by it because he knows it's coming to him too. He knows that that's what's going to happen to him. He walks over to the phone, calls Smithers, but he gets her answering machine. He starts telling her that Doug and Randy are dead, and the answering machine cuts out. But he looks at the keypad on the phone. And he goes, numbers to letters. Oh, you mean the numbers? Zoinks!
Yeah.
It's like the numbers on the lamp are the same thing as the numbers on a keypad. Right on row. Oh my God. It's really fucking loose. Like you got to go, suspension of disbelief. It is so suspension of disbelief at this point. You just got to let it go, I guess.
Yeah. No, I know. And I mean, at this point, we're already double the runtime of the actual movie. So, like, you don't have time to dwell on any of these things unless you're doing a 4-hour podcast about it. Then, of course, you're going to dwell on it. But when you're watching it, this shit just flies past you. And you're like, okay, I'm along for the ride at this point.
And you know, to be honest with you, both Corey and I purchased these movies, so we're like so fine with owning this, and we'll watch it repeatedly. It's a great movie to watch with a group of people.
Oh God, yeah! I'm going to show this to Luke and Xaire when they come up and visit next month. It's a great movie. It's a fun party movie. It's a great movie, but it is very flawed. But it doesn't hold it back. So if anything, take all of these flaws that we're calling out and know that it doesn't detract from the enjoyment of this film at all.
No. And this is, it's funny because he starts writing out the letters to the digits, and he goes, he's like, it writes out body, and he goes, damn, that's it. Cut to the red convertible screeching to the hospital or the morgue. Roger gets out.
He's driving that shit like he stole it, by the way.
Driving like he stole it, and he's looking tore up from the floor up at this point. Walks into the morgue. Cuts to McNabb combing his toupee in his office.
Which is cool because it was such an obvious toupee that I like the fact that they actually brought attention to it, and you see his real hair. He's sitting there with his real hair now.
Yeah, because everyone knows. They saw Christmas Story. They're like, this is the guy from the Christmas Story. Roger walks in and says, and McNabb's like, what are you doing here? Roger says, you killed me and Doug, and maybe not Randy, but you should have let her stay dead. And McNabb asks, like, what are you talking about? And Roger's like, revenge. And you're on the receiving end unless you come up with some answers, see? Yeah. McNabb's like, you're losing your mind. Because it's deteriorating. He's like very happy with the fact that he's like, no, it's fine. You're losing your mind because you're deteriorating. You're falling apart. I didn't do anything. And Roger says, McNabb buried Loudermilk alive. You buried Loudermilk alive. And Loudermilk wanted to point the finger at you, but he was afraid to write "It's McNabb" in case you came back and erased it. So he tried something just a little bit subtler. It's a coded message, and it says "Body Doc." Oh my God. Like, we know this is all bullshit, by the way, because Loudermilk is alive, and he's working with McNabb.
Yeah.
Whoever let this, it's the MacGuffin. Yeah, see, it's the MacGuffin. It's the MacGuffin. But I get that. I love Kiss Me Deadly with the briefcase and which Pulp Fiction,
ripped off.
Used,
Mm-hmm.
ripped off. But still, like, come on, it's 1988. Like, have a little bit more thoughtfulness in this thing.
Yeah.
Not just like, it's literally like making a movie, whodunit, and then a random guy coming in, like the guy in Killer Tomatoes, going, "Tomatoes!" Like walking up, like has nothing to do with the movie, and gives you a note, and you open it up, and you're like, "Your father is the murderer." Oh, thanks, random guy.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you figure it out. Like, no, that's exactly what it is. You know?
Yeah. You're right. You're right. It has. I can't explain it any better other than saying you're right.
Tomatoes. So McNabb
zombies.
McNabb laughs and he's like, "Well, this is what happens when you die. Your synapses fire, leading to all sorts of demented conclusions." Roger's like, "My mind has never been sharper." And then he shoots the phone, and that McNabb's about to pick up the phone, and he shoots the phone. He goes, "Neither has my aim." And McNabb's like super pissed now. And Roger asks, "How many others, Canfield, the Blue Jean King, or Oliver Lang," like all the people they were looking up at the library, he's bringing them back up again. This is the callback.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "You take their money and you brick them up. Is that it?" And McNabb points at Roger and says, "That's a lie." Roger grabs his finger and he looks at the ring on his finger. He goes, "That's a nice ring. And that watch, I bet we can trace those back to the jewelry store heist." And like, oh, okay, these are kind of tracking.
Yeah.
And then he takes the ring off of McNabb. Roger starts saying that you resurrected the robbers to rob for you. He's putting all the pieces together. And McNabb's like, "Circumstantial evidence would never hold up in any court, see?" Roger says, "I'm not waiting on any court." And he points the gun at McNabb. And McNabb says, "I can help you." And Roger says, "Like you helped Randy James?" And he goes to shoot McNabb, but a dude comes out of nowhere and grabs the gun, and it pulls it up so it shoots up to the sky and doesn't hit McNabb. And it's two zombie thugs along with Thule.
Yeah, and I like how the zombie thugs here look very different. All the zombie thugs are very different looking, and you don't even see these two ever again, which is kind of neat. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I like it too. And it's just funny because McNabb asks for his ring back that Roger took off his finger, and he puts the ring back on. He goes, "Every job has its perks." And Roger says, "You're going to pay for this." And Thule and McNabb looks at Thule and he goes, "Silence him." And the zombies knock out Roger with the butt of their gun. And Thule asks McNabb, he goes, "How do you wish this man killed?" Cut to the exterior of the morgue in the front, and there's an ambulance out there. And McNabb is telling Roger, "I've come to love you like a son. Honest, trustworthy, dependable, like a freaking Boy Scout." And they walk to the ambulance and in front of the morgue, open the doors, and McNabb says, "Isn't it ironic you're going to spend your last moments inches from freedom in the front of a county morgue?" And they put him in the van, and they handcuff him to the side rail of the ambulance van, and there's a body next to him with a sheet on it. And McNabb says, "I hope you don't mind sharing the bed space." And he pulls back the sheet to reveal Smithers. Dun, dun, dun.
Damn, man. Everyone fucking dies in this movie, dude. It's
dark.
It's dark. It's actually pretty fucking dark, man. Like, every time I watch this past two times, like even the second time I watched it, I don't expect to see her there. That one's kind of tough, you know?
That was a shocker. And I like her. She's a good character.
Yeah.
And obviously Roger's pissed, and McNabb's like, "Well, this van is lined with stainless steel and it's soundproof. Perfect place to disintegrate, which will happen," and he looks at his watch, "in about 45 minutes. Thule says, "We need to go now." and they close the door and they lock it with padlock and they leave. Cut to Roger in the ambulance trying to get out. He looks at Smithers and he's like, well, I always thought we'd wind up together, but never like this. And he looks to the front of the ambulance and he's kind of gets excited.
We're about to get into my favorite scene in the entire fucking movie.
Yeah, again, suspension of disbelief, because he reaches out. He realizes that he can stretch his body out from where he's handcuffed, and then like reach his foot to grab the shifter on the van to shift it into neutral. I thought you needed keys to be able to do that, but I think you do.
Yeah.
But whatever. But what's cool in this scene is like as he's stretching out, the handcuffs are ripping at the flesh of his arm.
That's what I was going to say. I really like that. I think that's really fucking cool.
I love that too. And so he's able to shift the shifter on the ambulance from park to neutral, and the ambulance starts rolling forward. And he's kind of rocking, and he's going kind of slow at first, and he's got this look on his face like, oh yeah, this is great. Right?
This is going to be good. He already knows that this is going to be a good time because it's a downhill shot the entire way. And he hits a car in front of him and it starts going too. And man, they start picking up speed, dude. And the look of just pure joy and happiness on Roger's face. It's a moment of zen, man. I love it, man. He is so like, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, he lets out this big, oh yeah. And the ambulance like goes off of a hill, comes crashing down, barreling into a bunch of cars, and explodes in a blaze of glory, like he had said in his obituary.
Like he wanted to go out. And by the way, it's not like a Mad Max sped up footage. It is a fast ambulance plowing into a bunch of cars into an intersection. It's a really, really good stunt. Much better than than this movie has any right to have in it, you know?
Totally agree. By the way, the other night, apparently someone rented a Tesla and drove it off of like some road in Los Angeles, like off a big, and to do like a big dramatic jump, and then plowed into a bunch of cars at like 3:45 in the morning, and then got out of the car and just split. I don't think they found the person that got the car either. Reminds me of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
So the aftermath, there's an ambulance there, police officers there off his motorcycle, and there's 2 body bags on the ground, one probably being Smithers and one being Roger. Roger's body bag zips open, and out comes Roger, whose like colored Miami Vice outfit is now all black because it's been charred, which is cool. Yep. I love that.
And his hair's all spiky, and he has a shrapnel earring on. Essentially, it's like stuck to his ear. But this is like, this is the idea that like he basically becomes cooler the more dead he is. And I think the makeup effects on this final form, and this is how we're going to see him for the rest of the movie, because spoiler alert, there's literally only like 15 minutes left. And he looks great. It's a great makeup effect. I think he looks awesome. I just wish that we saw maybe in his face had like some kind of that sparkly stuff that we saw at the very beginning when his hand, gets cut.
Yeah, I think if they made this now, they would do that.
Yeah,
right?
They'd throw some CGI on it or something.
Yeah. So the paramedics are freaked out, and they're like, "You're not looking good, man," or something like that. Yeah. And the motorcycle cop pulls his gun out on him, tells him to freeze.
Do you recognize that motorcycle cop?
I don't.
Hawkins, no! It's fucking Shane Black.
That's Shane Black?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I wasn't paying attention enough, but Jesus, nice dude. Look at you.
Well, I saw that he's in the credits on IMDb. He's credited as patrolman. And I was like, oh, is he in the beginning shootout or something? And then when I rewatched the film, I was like, oh, that's him. The cop with the gun, the motorcycle cop. And then once you know it's him, you can see it. You can see the Hawkins in his eyes.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And this is after Predator.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's after Predator, so.
Wow. Maybe he's friends with I bet he's friends with the director.
Well, I was wondering if he had any connection to the writer, Terry Black. I don't know.
Oh. Good question.
Yeah, I don't know, truthfully. Maybe someone out there actually might know the answer to that. Is there a connection with Shane Black and Terry Black at all?
Wow.
Like, why is Shane Black in this movie here?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Or did Shane Black do any kind of punch up on the script? I kind of feel no. I feel like he didn't because the script's not that tight, you know?
Yeah. No, agreed. Well, him as the cop, you know, he looks at Roger. He's like, "You're a cop?" And he says, "Detective Mortis, homicide." And he asks for the gun, the cop's gun, and he gets on his motorcycle and he drives off.
And that motorcycle goes fast, by the way. Like,
oh yeah, he's feeling so good now.
Yeah.
Like, hell on wheels.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just want to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim.
And I'm Dean.
And we're the hosts of Talking Back. We're a retro-based podcast covering movies, comics, video games, and more.
Check us out every Monday where we hit the rewind button and dig into some of our favorite content from the past. We like to keep things fun, lighthearted, and informative.
Do you feel like you need more nostalgia in your life? Then check out Talking Back. We're available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello everybody, I'm Adam.
I'm John.
And every week we are giving you a blast from our past.
We are the podcast that brings you full-on movie breakdowns, TV show reviews, album reviews, top 10s, and more, all from the things of our nostalgic past.
So please join us every single week on the Blast from Our Past podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. However you listen to podcasts, you can find us, and we would love to have you take a trip with us to the land of nostalgia.
And now, back to the show.
Cut back to Dante's Pharmaceuticals at night. McNabb is in the resurrecting lab with a bunch of older people sitting around the lab, sitting around the resurrection table. And he's discussing the untimely death of Arthur P. Loudermilk and starts to review his accomplishments. And he goes, "Well, why don't we have the man tell you himself?" And out walks Loudermilk. "Hello, everybody."
I like your Vincent Price, by the way. It's very good.
Oh, I'm working on it.
You all hearing it now. He's workshopping it as we're doing this.
Yeah, so it'll probably get better as the episode goes on.
We only have 10 minutes left in the movie, though.
No, but this is like pretty much the only other scene he's in, right? And Arthur walks out and he goes, "Friends and associates, how nice to see you all again." And some old dude is like, "I saw you buried, Loudermilk. Damn it, I saw you buried." And Loudermilk says, "You were misled. The man in the grave is a volunteer personally selected by Dr. McNabb." And Loudermilk starts telling everyone that the demonstration they're about to see makes burial somewhat unnecessary. Cut to a crispy Roger on his bike en route to Dante. Cut back to Dante Pharmaceutical, but it's through the viewpoint of a security monitor, and there's two security guards at the front desk watching this, watching what's unfolding in the lab, basically. And then Loudermilk's talking about, you know, all of you are billionaires, and you don't want your fortune to go left to a wolf pack. And you, what if you could just live with it, right? And Loudermilk is saying, you know, going from one billionaire to another, basically convincing them of what would they do to not die.
Now my question is, would they stay this age though, like forever?
Well, I wrote that down too. I'm like, would they want to live out these last lives? Because most of them maybe got a couple more years. They all had a good run, as I like to say.
I would have been like, I wish you had approached me with this when I was like in my 50s or something, not in my 80s.
Right? And cuts back to the security guards, and the security guards are like, you know, "How many rich bozos do you think he has in there tonight?" Cut back to Loudermilk giving a speech about death being frustrating and all your money going away while you're 6 feet under. And and the money going to money-grubbing nobodies, going after your fortune like rodents after a lump of cheese.
And I like how he says, like, to, like, the one lady's, like, all you're going to be is a plaque on the wall or something, you know, type of thing, or, you know, dedicated
Gertrude,
to,
Yeah, he looks at one of the women named Gertrude, and then he says, "Poor people are supposed to die, but the same rule doesn't apply to us. We're rich. God wants us to live forever, and even if he doesn't, we can buy him off."
Jesus, I mean, that's so applicable now and so applicable in the 80s, man.
Totally,
Wow.
totally.
This little, like, his speech thing holds up well.
Yeah, totally. He goes, "It'll cost all of you half of your fortune, but you'll have forever to make it back." And then you cut back to the security monitor, and you see it's the monitor of the front of the pharmaceuticals, and it's Roger pulling up on his motorcycle. And he revs his engine. He starts driving down the entryway of the pharmaceutical building, and the motorcycle hits a chain, and it causes the bike to
jettison,
stop,
launch him,
and he launches off the bike through the front door windows of the lab. And as he flies in, he turns around and he's shooting at the security guards, blasting them away, a la something out of a John Woo movie.
Yeah, and it's great because he doesn't give a fuck about his body at this point. And I like that, and I think, like, if they were ever going to remake it or whatever, I would want to lean into this aspect of it, of him just being like, well, fuck it. I'm literally just going to launch myself through the windows because I don't care. I've got like 30 minutes left. So I like the punishment that he goes through in this last 10 minutes of the movie because it's really fucking awesome, and no fucks are given by Roger. And I like that. I think that's cool.
Totally agree. No fucks given. And what I love about this scene too is like he is out of bullets with his gun, drops the gun on the ground, walks over to the dead security guards and takes their Uzis and grenades, by the way.
Yep.
What security guards need grenades? But apparently the ones at Dante's Pharmaceuticals.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay
with it too.
Yeah.
Grenades on security guards.
Yes.
Kind of funny.
Yes.
Cut back to Louder Milk trying to convince all these billionaires to buy life, you know. And one of the millionaires, Gertrude, asks, she's like, "What's your gimmick, Louder Milk?" And he goes, "No gimmick." And she goes, "Bullshit." Louder Milk says, "I know it sounds impossible, but I've planned a little demonstration." There's a body on the rejuvenation machine. And he says, "This man's been dead for hours." And then he has everyone come over to inspect the body. Cut back to Roger walking towards the lab, and there's a security guard reading another magazine.
And he blasts him. He doesn't even he just fucking guns the fuck out of him. He's like, "Nope, that's it."
Guns the hell out of that guy. That guy looked familiar to me. He's like thug number 2 in so many movies.
Yeah, he was like an old stuntman type of thing. Yeah, exactly.
Cut back to Louder Milk saying, "Now that you've seen him, let's see the little demonstration." And he asks McNabb to basically do the deed, turn the rejuvenation machine on. And McNabb starts like typing into the computer monitor, and he's like flailing his hands dramatically like he's a composer. It's really silly.
It is.
And lightning starts hitting the body. Cut back to Roger killing another security guard and out of nowhere. And then another security guard comes out from another, what do you call that? Like
alcove. Yeah, I know what you mean. He just comes
out from a corner.
Yeah.
And shoots Roger, which startles him. And this is quite possibly one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Me too.
They start shooting each other with their Uzis, and they're just blasting each other back and forth. It is like something out of an airplane movie. That's what it would, or a Naked Gun.
It's so good because they're also both like shaking from the bullet hits and everything. And I think in the documentary with the director, they show his original edit of it, and it was like a cut longer, like it was a minute longer, not a minute. I'm sorry, it was like it was just a smidge longer. I like the way it actually was. Like, he was talking about how he wanted it to be longer because that's where the humor lies and the absurdity of it. I thought it was fine the way it is. I thought this little scene is perfect. And because he shoots that goon guy into the decompression chamber, fucking starts closing the door, throws a grenade in the door as it's closing, and then throws a couple bullets in there too. He's like, brr, there's like, just shoots a couple bullets in there. Why not? Fucking loved it. If the ambulance scene is my favorite, this is my second favorite in the movie. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, this is my favorite. You can find a GIF of this online, by the way. It's really funny.
Oh, and I'll post it for sure.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, I love that. He's just like, one more shot just for shits and giggles.
Like one more brr, just a couple. Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
He opens up the door to the lab, and as the door opens to the lab, the grenade goes off, exploding the body that's inside, and body parts fly out, a la Big Trouble in Little China when one of the storms explodes.
Yep. Yeah.
Everyone in the room is looking stunned to see Roger. Roger looks around and he's like, "It's okay. Don't get up." And McNabb is yelling at Thule to go get him. Thule starts shooting an Uzi at Roger, and in the process, he's killing some of the billionaires.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was kind of cool. Like, not all of them die, just a couple, get gunned down. I was like, that's cool. I like that.
But Thule killed them.
Yeah, of course.
And
then he
and
gets
then
killed.
Roger kills Thule. And he's like, "Told you not to get up." And then another security guard appears out of nowhere looking all this one looks zombified. All the other security guards up until this point did not look zombified, but this one did.
Because even the one that he does the infinite bullets, like they both shoot each other, like that guy, I guess at this point you expect, okay, that guy's a zombie, obviously, but he didn't look like one. This guy has like sort of a Frankenstein face to him.
Yeah, this one doesn't. This guy's just standing there shooting. Like a doofus, not even moving. He's just shooting the gun. And Roger's walking towards him, getting pelted and just like taking it all in. Meanwhile, most of the billionaires are the ones who are alive are leaving at this point. The security guard keeps shooting him until he runs out of bullets. And he tries to reload, but Roger grabs him and throws him into a bunch of electrical wires and kills him, which is kind of a weak kill. But,
but it's also Roger throws him into the expertly crafted set design, which looks fantastic.
True.
He just electrocutes the guy, and it's kind of lame.
That's true. You see Loudermilk like running towards the exit, scared, but then he kind of stops.
Oof. And then begins. Oh, I hate everything about Loudermilk in this climax here, where he's standing in the doorway, just talking,
Yes, I know it's not good. So because Roger reloads his gun and he starts walking towards McNabb, and Loudermilk asks, what does he want?
What does he want? Why doesn't he die?
And Roger's like, he goes, "Not you, old man. I want him. You're dead, McNabb, and you're even deader than I am. Yeah, see?" And McNabb says, "Oh, I don't think so." And he pulls back the black sheet of the body that's on the rejuvenation machine, and it's Doug. It's looking 100% better than he did from the fish tank.
I was going to say, and it's a pristine looking Doug.
He's all glazed up. Doug's eyes open. He hops off the machine, looking all ripped with his stomach sucked in. Roger goes, "Doug, you're alive." And I'm like, duh. Because this is what that machine does, of course, right?
And then Joe Piscopo does his best acting in the entire movie right now.
This is pretty much, yeah. So Doug is looking like he's got a little bit of kind of grayish hue on his skin a little bit. And McNabb says, "He can't understand a word you're saying. He's been brain dead too long." And you cut back to Doug's face, like looking twitchy and looking all pasty. And then McNabb says, "Which means he's mindless and totally obedient. Kill this guy, would you?" Which is funny because Doug only responds to that last sentence.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Which he repeats over and over again.
Yeah.
But like all the other stuff
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Whatever. And Doug says, "Kill this guy, would you? Kill this guy, would you?" Like a robot. He keeps repeating it, walking over to Roger. He grabs Roger by the throat. Roger's able to talk normally with his hands around his throat, crushing it, which is whatever. And he's like, hey, Doug, do you realize we both have the same death day? You know what we could do? We could have a death day party. Invite all your friends. Get really ripped. Which is what Doug said earlier in the movie.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's
Loudermilk.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. Loudermilk's like, well, do something.
Yeah, God, I hate everything about Vincent Price in this scene. It's only here. Like, I didn't mind him before. It's the fact that he literally spends the remainder of the climax, and you can tell that they just had him go against a doorway and then just read all of his lines, pause, read your next line, pause. We'll cut him in and everything. You could just tell that he just spent, maybe 2 takes or something doing these things, but he's like, what, do something. He's like yelling things at, Kolchak, the Night Stalker. It's like, what? You do it yourself, bitch, do something.
Right. And then McNabb's yelling at Doug. He's like, kill him, you dead son of a bitch. And cuts back to Roger, and Roger like, Doug, remember the lipstick? Mulberry wine? Brings out my eyes.
Oh God,
that's so bad.
And that's what causes Doug to come back to reality. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? It's the fucking terrible, terrible gay joke. That's what brings him back.
Yeah, and Doug's like, Roger? And he drops him. And he goes, hi, Doug. Welcome to Zombieland. And Doug helps him up, and Doug's like, Roger, he said I should hurt you. Like, oh my God, what are you, a puppy now?
Yeah.
Like the way he's talking about him. Because really, it's weird. And then Doug turns towards McNabb creepily and says, but I'm gonna hurt him. And Roger says, kill that guy, would you? Yeah. And Doug's like back in a trance. Yeah. And he starts walking towards McNabb. And so now they're circling McNabb around the rejuvenation machine. And McNabb says, oh no. And he walks over to the machine controls and he pulls a gun out and he starts an Uzi, and he starts shooting Roger and Doug.
And this is when like Vincent Price is like, why won't they die? It's like, you created this fucking machine. You know why they won't fucking die.
Why can't you kill him?
What the fuck, man?
Stupid. It's really, like, did we just forget what this whole movie was about?
Yeah.
And they get really close to McNabb, and McNabb says, oh no, you bastards aren't going to take me. And then he blows his brains out. And he puts the Uzi in his mouth. Done. Dead.
I was fucking floored the first time I saw this. I was like, what the fuck, man?
It's wild. It's wild. And Roger's pissed. He's like, you cheated me. God damn you, McNabb, you cheated me. And Loudermilk's still watching. What's going on over there?
Yeah.
And Doug puts his arm around Roger. It's like, it's okay. It's over, Roger. Forget about it, man. And Roger's like, not yet. And they put McNabb on the machine. They bring up the monitors on the rejuvenation sequence. They start it, and McNabb gets resurrected.
Yeah.
And then Roger says, hi, Doc. Want to see what happens when you resurrect somebody twice? And Doug says, not really. And Roger starts the machine back up again, and McNabb starts screaming as the shocking, pulses come through, and it explodes McNabb. And this, to me, this is how you kill the main villain in a movie. Like, not in Deep Rising where, the guy crashes his boat. Like, you give the worst person in the movie the worst death experience you can give them.
And it's a great fake body explosion, too.
It is. It's amazing. Again, it's like Big Trouble in Little China,
Yeah, yeah.
And so after that, Doug and Roger start walking away from the machine. The machine starts breaking down. Loudermilk's yelling, no, wait, save the machine. And it's like everything's short-circuiting. And he's like, we can fix it. I can make you normal again. What does he now sound like, Miss Piggy? And he's like, I'll give you anything you want. And Doug and Roger are walking off into the sunset. And he's like, money, power, eternal life, riches beyond your wildest dreams. Doug and Roger turn back around towards the machine. And he's like, just save the machine. And they look at each other. They smile. They put their Uzis back in the machine, point their Uzis back in the machine. fire away, brrr, while they're both shaking, and Doug sucking in his stomach, and he's flexing out his chest, like super dramatically, like it's really ridiculous.
Oh, there was a cool camera shot that was like the camera kind of falls over as everything's exploding. I was like, that's actually really cool. Good job. I like that shot.
If that was not on accident, that was a great idea. Oh shit, the camera fell over. No, that's kind of cool.
It actually looks kind of good.
And Loudermilk's just screaming, and he's like cowering, still in that corner, you were saying.
The same fucking doorway that he's been in for the past like 8 minutes. It's it's ridiculous.
And he's yelling, "No, wait, you don't have to do that. You'll live forever, forever." And it echoes as the camera kind of zooms back, right? From him as he's talking.
And then, it zooms back, and then then there's an explosion, then it cuts close to his face. So you're just like, that he's blowing up in it, but they're not doing any effects on Vincent Price himself, You
get the sense that he's dead too.
Yeah.
Now Doug and Roger are leaving leaving the lab room, walking down the hallway from where they were in the beginning of the movie with Randy. And Doug comically says, "Man, Roger, you're a mess. I've seen meatloaf that looks better than you." Okay. And Roger goes, "Well, you're not exactly the Forest Lawn poster child yourself, Doug." Like, a Forest Lawn poster child? Like, that's a cemetery.
Okay.
Sure. And he goes, "Hey, we really trashed their ass, didn't we?" And Doug says, "That's asses, Roger." "Hey, Raj, do you think we'll be reincarnated?" Roger says, "As what?" Doug says, "I don't know. Maybe you get a choice. You can be whatever you want." And Roger goes, "Oh, you mean like a statesman?" Who the fuck says statesman, by the way? He goes, "Or a president, or a prize-winning novelist?" And Doug says, "Personally, I'd like to come back as the seat of a girl's bike." And then Roger says, "Now that's truly inspiring." And Doug says, "Thank you." And Roger says,
and they're walking into the light.
They're walking into the light. Yeah, which is cool. They're going to die.
Yeah. And honestly, I was talking to Bert about this because he was asking me, he's like, do you take that literal? And I'm like, yeah. Like, honestly, it's the only way this movie can end is them literally walking into the light, and I'm taking it literally because the alternative is that Treat Williams, Roger's going to be goo in like 10 minutes. Then Doug is going to fucking be goo in like, I don't know, 11 hours from now. It's just, there's no happy ending there. This is the only way that you can have a happy ending,
True. And this is his homage at the end to Casablanca because Roger goes, "This could be the end of a beautiful friendship."
Yeah. And I like it, honestly. Yeah. I don't hate that. I like that they're walking into the light. At this point, the movie was such a ride, and as much as we make fun of Joe Piscopo, again, I want to reiterate, I couldn't picture anybody else in this role, and as a duo, I like them, and I want them to have a happy ending.
Me too. And then you end the movie the same way you started the movie, with the title card zooming in and saying "Dead Heat," which is awesome.
Yeah.
Then you cue the Cheeseball 80 song, which I love.
Yeah, great song. It's the song they play during the menus on the Blu-ray disc.
Yeah, and the lyrics are, "Just an ordinary guy on an ordinary day, cruising down the road, nothing standing in your way. Better open up your eyes, there's a danger right behind. And if you don't move fast, you'll never see the finish line. It's dead heat in a race against time. You don't want to cash it in with your life on the line. You're in a dead heat."
Dude, it's so good.
Credits.
It's up there. Good job, buddy. It's up there with Neon Slime and Bump in the Night on Witchboard, which is an awesome song as well. And this one's
by
fantastic.
Kevin Tenney, by the way.
Yeah.
And Kevin Tenney listened to our breakdown, fun fact.
Oh, that's freaking awesome. That's fantastic. I love that.
I talked to him about it on Facebook. So
okay.
He was really proud of our breakdown.
Oh, wow. That's first I'm hearing about it. That's awesome. I had no clue, but this song's great, man. This fucking movie's fucking awesome. Come on. We pulled a little riff track on this and kind of shat on some stuff, but for the most part, guys and gals, if you haven't seen it, the stuff that we called out, weirdly, you probably won't even notice half of it. You know what I mean? Like, it'll just go by so fast. The movie's such a good time that you kind of don't notice half of the shit that's silly. It's there, you know what I mean? Like, repeated viewings will bring it to the surface and everything, but as like a fun film and what it does right, Dead Heat does more right than it does wrong. And honestly, anything wrong is usually in the script form or just a Joe Piscopo terrible fucking line or something. But other than that, it's a fucking blast, man. I'm so glad we reviewed it. You did a great job breaking it down, dude.
Oh, thank you.
This was so much fun. It's a fun movie, man. It's just a fun movie.
Well, something so right can't be so wrong. Look, I totally get the place that people have for podcasts where they rip on something and goof on it the whole time. I think ripping on Pissed Off Capo is par for the course. Anybody can do that. And I think that the flaws we pointed out are genuine, like, yeah, they should have fixed that, or they should have tweaked that. I agree with you. It doesn't take away from the love I have of this movie. I think this movie is super fun as well. I love these 88-minute movies, Monster Squad and Trancers and this, and like there's countless others that we've done that are so tight, and I love that. I think that's great. And at the end of the day, it is this nice little homage to 50s noir and under the guise of like wacky horror films, in the same way that Monster Squad was a homage to Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. So I think it's great. It's unique. It's fresh. It's shit ton of fun. You will love it because Piscopo's so bad. That's what makes it enjoyable.
Like for some reason, I mean, I fucking hate him. I fucking hate Joe Piscopo, and I'm sorry if we ever interview him. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure he's really nice, but like, I fucking hate him in this movie. But at the same time, he is one of the reasons this movie is so much fun, because you love to fucking hate him in it.
Yeah, I think that was the thing as a kid I wished was different, was my only takeaway. Forget about the continuity or plot being iffy at points. The only thing I wanted was them to be a little bit more serious, a little less jokey.
Because Riggs and Murtaugh, both of them are cool. I mean, sort of in different ways, but like Murtaugh is like not cool, you know? It's just, you don't need Joe Piscopo to be always like that. And I'm with you. I think it just, for some reason as a kid, I just couldn't wrap my head around what they were trying to do with this movie, you know? And I do think that I probably would have gravitated to it more if like maybe another actor was in Doug's role or something like that. But I look at it as a 44-year-old man in 2022 looking for just escapism from, you know, World War III and all the other nightmares that we're, you know, currently existing with. And I see this movie and I'm like, but I think Joe Piscopo's perfect because he's perfectly terrible. You know what I mean?
He is, and everybody does their job. There's so much fun to be had in this film, and flaws aside, it's got way more positives than negatives. So everybody, obviously, you know, we highly recommend you pick it up from Vinegar Syndrome, because that's basically the only way you can watch it right now too. So, but hey, look, we had a wild ride. We basically doubled the runtime of this movie in our episode. And, but you know what, guys? You know what also is a fun ride? You know what is a fun ride? Is Cut Right, Seinfeld podcast.
Oh,
Corey.
buddy. Thank you. I actually had a good segue queued up for $2 late fee, but I'll take it. I'll take that. Thank you. So yeah, Cut Right, a Seinfeld podcast. Me and our pal Adam are tackling every single episode of Seinfeld from beginning to end, and we are halfway through season 8 right now, so we're almost at the end. But we're also tackling Curb Your Enthusiasm on the Cartwright Patreon as well. So it's a lot of fun. I love me some Seinfeld. I know Zach does too. It's interesting because Zach and I don't talk much Seinfeld, but he likes it as well, and we're all big Seinfeld fans here. But you know what else I'm a fan of?
What else are you a fan of?
I'm a fan of $2 late fee, baby. What I know martial arts madness by the time we're listening to this will probably be wrapping up, so because we're about at the end of March. But can you give us any sort of sneak peek, any preview as to what you guys have planned on for April, maybe, or for the Patreon, $2 late fee Patreon?
Yeah, we just wrapped up our martial arts madness with an interview with Don the Dragon Wilson, who is a legendary martial artist and actor. He joined us live in studio, but then we did an audio version, which has some fun little clips from some of his movies, which is worth checking out as well. And it's inspiring. People keep talking about our interview with Jeff Speakman, The Perfect Weapon. I've gotten more comments from people recently saying that it brought tears to their eyes, inspiring, gratitude. So it's a really uplifting interview. But we've got an upcoming interview with an actor named Nestor Serrano. And many of you who listen to our show will know that Nestor Serrano was in the first show that I brought to TV Obscura, The Hat Squad.
The Hat Squad, yeah, I know him.
He's Chooch. He's the Chooch man.
Yeah,
so,
he's been in a bunch of stuff. That's awesome.
He's been in a bunch of stuff. We are going to be covering the movie Hanging with the Homeboys, which is a very underrated and little known indie film from the early 90s. If you've never seen it, check it out.
And that doesn't surprise me that the interview with Jeff Speakman got so deep. We've been getting a bunch of positive responses to our Rob Paulson interview that we did. And obviously the connective tissue is that Zach, is on both of those interviews. And, I take all of my interviewing cues from Zach. And he's just damn good at kind of just talking, just keeping the conversation going and really digging in with people. So, if you like our interviews on Pad, obviously go check out the $2 late fee interviews because Zach's on both of them. And I think both of them they're good. I think it's you, buddy. And I know Dustin does a great job, and I know I do a great job, but you're the backbone to those interviews. And I'm really impressed with what you're able to pull out of these people.
Well, I promise you I will not be pronouncing sulfathiazole. Hey, I did it without stumbling.
Holy shit. It literally, I watched it happen. It just flowed out of his mouth. And even Zach looked at the camera like, oh my God, I just did it.
Because the episode's over. That's why.
It's over. It's wild. That's it, guys. We're done. This is it.
Bye. I appreciate it, man. This is our family. This is our family. And speaking of families, check out the whole BFOP network family.
Yeah.
Talking Back.
Action, Blast from Our Past, Throwback Trivia Takedown, all those guys. And yeah, man, it's a great time. I love being a part of this family. I love our extended family. Obviously $2 late fee, Ready to Retro, Give Me Back My Action Movies, Cinema 9 podcast, all our friends that we've made, outside of our network and everything. It's really fucking cool. So thank you all for being so awesome. And if you want to support Podcast After Dark, obviously we have our Patreon page. We have, the Carpenter Factor and everything. Obviously we have all that stuff, but we understand times are tough. A free way to help out the show is leaving us a 5-star review on Spotify, leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Please also do that for $2 late fee. Please also do that for every show you listen to. I don't care if it's a podcast we don't have any connection to. If you like a podcast, I'm just telling you as a podcaster, please leave them a 5-star review because it really fucking helps. They all really, really help. So thank you all.
Except for Smartless and all the big giant ones.
Yeah. Fuck them. But help out indie podcasters and everything. Yeah. So, and we have great stuff coming for you guys in the future. We have some awesome crossover stuff happening. We're working on another $2 late fee crossover episode that I think is going to be freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, baby.
And yeah, good shit coming. Always good shit coming. Always enjoy doing the show with you, Zach. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side. Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
I'm John, and I'm the host of Action Action. Every week, I'm joined by James.
Heyo.
And Dustin.
Hello.
And each week, we review, debate, and rank a different action movie.
We're creating the ultimate list of action movies.
From awful to awesome.
So if you want to hear 3 more white guys with beards talk about action movies,
and argue about where they belong on our list,
and decide you hate us because we made fun of your favorite movie,
join us every Tuesday, and you can find us on your favorite podcatcher.
And Steven Seagal is a joke.